The mythical empire of civilization. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 101. 2 buildings with abnormal properties. 4 seasons granary. The current space can store 5 million jin of grain. Features: the stored grain will remain in its original state, no matter how many seasons have passed, and will not deteriorate or rot. Hint: every 1000 civilization points spent can increase the storage capacity by 1 million jin, with no upper limit. Qin Yu looked at the huge granary in front of him, which was like a high-rise building, and his eyes were filled with shock. In its initial state, it can store 5 million jin of grain, and it will not rot, no matter how long it is stored. The most abnormal thing is not this, but that it only takes 1000 points to increase the storage capacity by 1 million jin, and there is no upper limit. No upper limit. What does this mean? This means that this is a powerful building that can store food indefinitely without worrying about rot. Think about what would happen if there was no output due to natural disasters or man-made disasters. This is the importance of storing food in advance, but food cannot be stored for many years. Therefore, with this 4-season granary, food can be stored indefinitely, which is the most important thing. Ask someone to move the food outside in. Qin Yu ordered the guards beside him. The guard nodded, and then went down to order more than 200 civilians to carry the grain. Bags of sacks filled with grain were carried into the granary. Qin Yu estimated that there were at least tens of thousands of bags. A lot of flax was needed to make these bags. As the granary slowly piled up into mountains, Qin Yu felt comfortable. Sure enough, there was food at home, so there was no need to panic. Qin Yu placed the granary in the North City because there were the fewest residents here, so Qin Yu usually placed large buildings in the North City. After leaving the granary, Qin Yu came to the primary animal pen. Looking at the 70 or 80 wolf cubs that had grown to the size of adult black wolves, Qin Yu couldn't help but smile. This building should be considered extraordinary, right? It is really outrageous to change the size of a wolf to the size of a calf in a few months. Qin Yu silently took out the second primary animal pen in the warehouse. With a move of consciousness, a dazzling white light suddenly exploded next to the animal pen in front of him. After the white light dissipated, a beast pen that was exactly the same as the one next to it appeared in front of Qin Yu. Qin Yu's consciousness moved, and he took out another card engraved with a lifelike black wolf, and then threw it into the beast pen. A moment after the white light flashed, a group of hundreds of black wolves instantly appeared in the beast pen. At first, they rioted fiercely, but they were suppressed by the special ability of the building in just a moment. Do you feed them meat every day? Qin Yu asked the civilian beside him curiously. The civilian replied with obvious nervousness to the tribe leader, "Ken, must be fed meat. How can a wolf eat grass?" "Well, okay, work hard." Qin Yu patted the civilian on the shoulder and left the beast pen under the flattered look of the other party. After leaving the beast pen, Qin Yu found Ji Wu and others in the training ground of the Imperial Guard. At this time, Ji Wu was leading the Imperial Guard to conduct daily necessary training. Seeing Qin Yu walk in, he immediately turned around and ran over. "Why are you here, clan leader?" Qin Yu waved his hand, took off 2 ring-handled swords from his waist, and handed one to Ji Wu and the other to Zua. "Thank you for your hard work during this period. I have seen your achievements. These 2 magic weapons are your rewards." "Thank you for the reward, clan leader." The two took the 2 ring-handled swords with joy on their faces and happily pulled them out and put them back into check. Qin Yu gave the steel tang horizontal sword to Li before he left. Then he took out his own ring-handled sword and the one he drew and gave them to Ji Wu and the other 2. Seeing the envious look of Bearded Bear, Qin Yu could not help but comfort him. "Don't be envious. I don't have any weapons suitable for you for the time being. After all, you are strong, and it is easier to use heavier weapons." Bearded Bear hurriedly folded his hands and said, "Bearded Bear understands. As long as the clan leader still remembers me, we will be satisfied." Qin Yu could not help but laugh. "You kid, you are big, and you speak very smoothly. Okay, you continue training. I have other things to do. Clan leader, take care." Several people shouted loudly. After leaving the Imperial Guard's training ground, Qin Yu found another empty space, and a light flashed in his hand, and then threw it out. A huge building that looked like a military camp appeared in front of him. This building covers an area of more than 500 square meters. There are not only military tents, but also many weapon racks for swords, spears, and halberds, as well as various training equipment, etc. Primary militia training camp. Current status. Not open. Training conditions. One round of training will be carried out for every 1000 civilization points, lasting up to 5 days, and the maximum number of people is limited to 100. Attributes. During the training period, the soldiers participating in the training will gradually adjust their bodies to be tall and strong, have basic orderliness, and all attributes will be upgraded to the 1st star, and the attributes that have reached 1 star will remain unchanged. Upgrade. Consuming 10,000 civilization points will upgrade to the intermediate militia training camp, and the number of trainees per session will be increased to 500. It is worthy of being a blue quality building. Qin Yu couldn't help but sighed as he looked at the final attributes. You must know that the attributes of the Imperial Guards have only reached 1 star after all members have learned the sword technique, but now they are almost solidifying the 2nd star. However, the training intensity of this team is much higher than that of other troops, so the attributes are improved quickly, and it is still with the blessing of the sword technique. As for the rest of the troops, most of the force attributes barely reach 1 star. But the attributes of the militia training ground can make all the attributes of the soldiers reach 1 star. Not only force, but also agility, intelligence, command, and physique. What does this mean? These soldiers who came out of the militia training camp, their own attributes are already able to learn cultural knowledge, serve as grassroots officers, have agile skills in the same force as veterans. There are 3 uses in total. One is to train grassroots officers, and then directly parachute them into various troops after a period of training. However, the army emphasizes a clear distinction between rewards and punishments. It is definitely not convincing to be an officer without merit. However, with the support of the upper level, it is still very easy to support from the bottom. The second is to burst soldiers and directly conduct spearmen training after the training period. Each person has a bone spear and a leather armor and can stab all the time. The training is simple, the cost is low, and it can quickly form combat power, but it is a bit of a waste for such a high quality source of soldiers. The third is to take the elite route, which is very suitable for providing soldiers for the guards. But not only that, cavalry can also use militia training camps to provide soldiers. After all, the male people of the dragon tribe are not all tall and strong. Most of them are underdeveloped. Chapter 102. Forming cavalry archers. This militia training camp is simply a genetically modified artifact. It is a waste of talent to call it a militia training camp. However, one training session requires 1000 civilization points, and Qin Yu has 2600 civilization points at most. How to get civilization points? Qin Yu fell into deep thought. According to Zhao Yi, when civilization reaches certain achievements, it can also obtain a generous civilization point reward. But Qin Yu did not ask clearly what specific achievements. Should I join the alliance to trade with other players? Qin Yu felt that it was too early now. He had not yet learned about the alliance in the war zone. After thinking for a long time, Qin Yu finally decided to sell 2 props. He could not sell much in total, a species card of 5000 carb, and a prop card of concealing the sky and the sea, a prop card of seeing enemies in every tree and grass, as well as a 7-day collection acceleration and a 10-fold army training card. The army training card must not be sold. Qin Yu planned to use this card to quickly develop a cavalry. The collection card can be sold if it is not needed for the time being. Let's sell the species card as well. There is no shortage of fish in Nanu Lake. Let's sell the concealment card and keep 1 card. Finally, after careful consideration, Qin Yu decided to sell 1 of the prop cards, 1 game card, and 1 species card on them all. With a thought, Qin Yu opened the control panel of the system function. Then he clicked on the trading mall. Click on the sale again, and then the items in the system warehouse will appear on it. The system will recommend a price for you, based on the market price for reference. 5,000 carp species card, recommended price. 5,000 civilization points, confirmed sale, XXX civilization points. Concealment card, recommended price. 10,000 civilization points, 7-day collection speed bonus game card, recommended price. 8,000 civilization points. Qin Yu rubbed his chin with the base of his right hand, looking like he was thinking. He would definitely not go by the price recommended by the system, but would look at the rarity of the item. For example, the lowest price of Manxianguohe is 10,000, and only 10 players are selling it at 10,000. However, there are 30 or 40 players offering 15,000, 18,000 or even 20,000. Qin Yu thought about it, and finally priced the species card at 7,000, the game card at 10,000, and the prop card at 15,000. Moreover, according to the regulations, the system will also charge a 10% transaction tax after the sale is successful. Qin Yu made a simple calculation, and the 10% transaction tax drawn from the sale price of the 3 items added up to 3,200 civilization points. It is a bit outrageous, and this tax is really not small. After turning off the system light curtain, Qin Yu ordered someone to bring a team of 100 new soldiers. Qin Yu opened the entrance of the building and ordered the 100 people to go in. Then he called out the control light curtain of the militia training camp and chose to confirm the start of training. The 1,000 civilization points disappeared in the blink of an eye. Qin Yu looked over and saw that the 100 soldiers directly began to perform a series of sword and gun dances, use training equipment, and conduct Q drills. This should be the picture of the building in operation. Qin Yu was curious and observed for a long time. He found that these 100 people just kept repeating the same action and then left in boredom. At this time, someone came to report, Chief Yuming is back, and he also brought the militia member you nominated to escort. Qin Yu thought for a while and said, let Yuming wait for me in the meeting hall. As for the member, find a place to keep a strict watch on him. Yes. Qin Yu waved his hand. The guard raised his hand respectfully and saluted, then turned and left. Did you go out? Qin Yu looked back at another guard and asked. Reporting to the chief, after the clan meeting, Chief G led the team to set off. PFFT, what a warmonger. Qin Yu couldn't help laughing. Let's go back to the inner city, Qin Yu said and got on the carriage beside him. The guards around him quickly climbed up. One was responsible for driving, and the others were responsible for surrounding on both sides to prevent danger. After a while, the carriage slowly drove into the inner city and finally stopped in front of the meeting hall. Seeing the carriage stop, Qin Yu stood up and jumped off the car, then walked in. Haha, I finally transferred you back. I missed you so much. Yuming couldn't help but look a little resentful and said, why didn't the tribe leader transfer me back earlier? It's so uncomfortable to be here like this. Alas, there are few talents who can be used in the tribe, otherwise it would not be your turn. Qin Yu laughed and teased. Yuming was stunned for a moment, and his resentful look became more serious. Don't make fun of me, tribe leader. Qin Yu nodded and said, okay, let's talk about business. It's very important to let you come back this time. You tell me. Yuming's face immediately became expectant when he heard it. Have you seen G's wolf cavalry? How powerful is it? Qin Yu asked with a smile. When Yuming heard it, he immediately said, strong. Strong and fierce. It's hard to describe the feeling when looking at him. In short, very strong. Very handsome, right? Yuming felt it carefully, and it seemed to be what it meant. I want to form a cavalry team of 500 people. They can ride on horses and shoot at the enemy while running, and they can also charge the enemy with bone spears in close combat. In addition to training in riding skills, this team must also train the accuracy of shooting arrows on horseback, as well as how to stab the enemy with bone spears on horseback, how to charge into battle, how to go out of battle, how to pull and fly kites, and a series of cavalry tactics. The training tasks will be jointly undertaken by you and Ya. I will be responsible for occasional guidance and testing of the training results. It will probably start tomorrow. I have been selecting soldiers today. Listening to Qin Yu's narration, Yuming's face began to get excited, but in the end he couldn't help but asked, Chief, do you want me to command this cavalry team after training? Qin Yu couldn't help but laugh. Nonsense, why would I transfer you back if you're not the one leading it? Are you better? If not, get someone else. Alright. It doesn't hurt at all. I have a very good physique. Hahaha. Thank you for your trust, Chief. Yuming couldn't help but laugh excitedly. Go away. Stop laughing. You have a loud voice. Qin Yu pushed and chased Yuming out. After Yuming left, Qin Yu returned to his seat and sat down. Qin Yu was naturally useful in bringing back the militia member who led the way. The militia is not actually a real army, so military law is not popular. They just occasionally heard about it and thought that they would be punished if they did that. Normally, there will definitely be punishment, but it will not be serious enough to behead. But this person is really hateful. Not only does he act as a guide, but he also distorts the facts and tries to conceal the past. Qin Yu must make him the first person to eat the cake. Beheading cake. Secondly, Qin Yu wants to use this opportunity to promote civil law and criminal law. Since there is no need to issue text, it must not be too complicated. And this member is a guilty goat used to promote the strict laws. As the saying goes, killing the chicken to scare the monkey. Chapter 103 4-star characters. Establishing a law enforcement team. In the meeting hall, Qin Yu told C2 the whole story and then asked, Elder C, do you think this man should be killed? C2 was silent for a moment and then shouted, he should be killed. Oh. Why should he be killed? Qin Yu couldn't help but ask after hearing the other party's certainty. This kind of behavior must not be allowed in the tribe. The enemy was not strong enough last time and failed to break through the coal valley. But what if this happens again next time, but the opponent is strong? If the tribe lets such a person live, there will be such a person next time. It is a fluke that it was not broken through. Once it is broken through, it will cost the lives of thousands of people. Qin Yu nodded. This is indeed true. The military has military law, and the people have civil law. I want to take this opportunity to popularize civil law and use it as a warning to others. As for the formulation of civil law, it is not good to be too complicated. Elder C, why don't you discuss it with me? C2 immediately bowed and said, I'm honored. The two sat down and began to discuss. This conversation lasted for an entire afternoon. Qin Yu also heard many trivial things in the tribe that he had never known or observed. For example, if a sheep was missing from the livestock pen one day, it might be that the tribesmen secretly ate it. For example, when stone knives and tools were missing from the armory, some tribesmen hid some public items in the wooden houses where they lived and took them back for private use. For example, which work team had a fight and who injured or disabled whom? What's worse, someone sneaked over in the middle of the night because of a conflict and beat someone half to death. Qin Yu didn't know all of these things, but only vaguely understood some of the shadows. Now that he heard the details, Qin Yu couldn't help but feel that the popularization of criminal law was really a top priority and should be accelerated in its formulation and promulgation. Chief, this criminal law is almost perfect. You can promulgate it after making some simple changes. C2 wiped the sweat from his forehead and smiled. Qin Yu put down the animal skin on the table, then looked at C2 and said slowly, "See, elders have worked hard, but since there is a criminal law, there should naturally be people who enforce it. I intend to recruit and form a law enforcement team of 100 people to be responsible for spreading the criminal law, supervising the criminal law, and enforcing the criminal law. The captain of the law enforcement team must be a fair and selfless person. If you have any candidates, please recommend them to me." C2 stood up and bowed his hands and said, "I will do this immediately. The sooner the criminal law is promulgated, the better it will be for our dragon tribe." Qin Yu nodded slightly. "Goodbye, see elders." The next morning, after the clan meeting and the meeting hall ended, a team of 100 people gathered outside the gate. Qin Yu stood up and walked out. Looking at the team standing in front of him, he couldn't help but sigh at C2's efficiency. Clan leader, this man is called Kishi, and he is the candidate I recommend to be the captain of the law enforcement team. C2 introduced on the side. Qin Yu nodded slightly and looked over. The man in front of him was tall and straight, with regular features and a sense of righteousness flowing between his eyebrows. No wonder C2 recommended him to be the captain of the law enforcement team. Qin Yu's consciousness moved and called out the attribute panel. Name, Kishi. Gender, male. Age, 31 force, physique, agility, intelligence, command, combat talent, one-handed weapon, talent, integrity, B level lower, effect, upright appearance. Born with integrity, easy to get along with others and be trusted. Satisfaction. 55 loyalty, unknown, unlocked talent, able to judge people, can be checked. With a 4-star intelligence, it would be a pity if he didn't join the army or become a counselor. However, Qin Yu does need more talents in internal affairs at present. As long as the intelligence attribute is high, they are talented in handling government affairs. In addition to the 4-star intelligence, Kishi also has 3-star force. His special talent is quite suitable for being a judge, and he also has the potential to be an officer, but the position of law enforcement officer is also very important, so Qin Yu had to reluctantly let him give up the army to handle internal affairs. Kishi, I'm here. Qin Yu nodded and said, your task today is to memorize the 9 civil laws, and spread them to all parts of Longcheng within 5 days, and they will take effect immediately. For members of the law enforcement team, the crime of violating the law will be aggravated, but you will have additional benefits. Members of the law enforcement team will live in separate wooden houses in the inner city, 5 people per room. As for more detailed benefits, Elder C will be responsible for telling you. As for the position of law enforcement officer, it cannot be appointed directly. If Kishi wants to take the position, then you must handle 50 civil law cases in a fair and just manner without any mistakes. Okay, leave this to Elder C. I have something else to do. After Qin Yu finished speaking, he said hello to C2 and got on the carriage. A guard also got on and started driving the carriage. The other guards followed behind the carriage to take care of Qin Yu's safety. Patriarch, are you going to the North City? Yes, the North City horse farm. After a long time, the convoy drove all the way from the inner city into the North City and finally stopped in front of the North City horse farm. At this time, Yao and Yuming had been waiting here for a long time. Seeing Qin Yu getting off the car, they hurried over. Chief, sorry for the long wait. Let someone bring the new recruits over. Qin Yu nodded. After a long time, 500 new archer cavalry recruits selected from Longcheng were sent over. Qin Yu looked at the people standing in front of him. Most of them were pale and thin, and their heights were also different. The only thing worth praising was that they should not be too old. If such a group of people with extremely poor physical fitness were pushed onto the battlefield, there was no doubt that not only would the war be doomed to fail, but they would also be used as cannon fodder. But now with the civilian training camp, it is different. It only takes 1000 civilization points, and in 5 days, there will be 100 strong soldiers with command, intelligence, agility, physique, and force reaching 1 star. Debut as an elite soldier. This is the most terrifying. The selection of cavalry is divided into warhorse selection and knight selection. In ancient Chinese history, the selection of warhorses in various dynasties was extremely harsh. Moreover, the breeds that can be used as warhorses are extremely rare. In ancient times, there were professions such as horse appraisers and horse breeders, all of which appeared in order to select good warhorses for the army and cultivate good horse breeds. Generally speaking, high quality horse breeds with pure bloodlines will be separated from some inferior horses with short bodies and mixed bloodlines. This is to preserve the purity of the bloodlines of high quality horses, so that they can only breed with horse breeds with excellent bloodlines, thereby improving the horse breeds and providing more excellent war horses for cavalry. Not only that, good war horses also need careful care, and maintaining war horses is also a very costly matter of money, material resources and energy. Chapter 104 Cavalry Theory, Building Upgrade. Wuzi management of soldiers once recorded several requirements for the maintenance of war horses. A horse must be in a safe place, with suitable water and grass, and be fed and hungry. In winter, the stable is warm, and in summer, the porch is cool. Maintaining war horses is a very important thing. Some knights may take care of their war horses more carefully than their own mothers. Once the war horses are not energetic, the strength of the cavalry on the battlefield will be greatly reduced. As for how to select war horses and the harshness of the selection, Shuhudi Qin 2 bamboo slips miscellaneous notes on Qin laws once recorded. If the recruited horses are more than 5 feet and 8 inches, they are not competent and cannot run as fast as the magistrate. The county simmer will be given 2 armors, and the magistrate and the deputy will each be given 1 armor. First, the horses are given to the soldiers. When they arrive at the army, they will be tested. The horses are in the hall, and the magistrate and the deputy will be given 2 armors. The simmer will be given 2 armors, and then they will be abandoned. This passage means that when selecting war horses, the horses must be higher than 160 centimeters, and the horses must be strictly trained to listen to the rider's command. If they fail to meet the requirements, the military simmer, the county magistrate and others will be punished. The selected war horses will be sent to the military camp for a second review. If they are judged as unqualified, the county magistrate and county magistrate will be punished, and the military commander will be dismissed. 6 strategies. Martial knights also mentioned: front and back, left and right, circling forward and backward, crossing trenches, climbing hills, taking risks, crossing large swamps, and galloping against strong enemies. This obviously also puts forward requirements for cavalry war horses. In order to meet the above requirements, it is necessary to take various measures to raise more war horses, select and breed good breeds, and maintain and train war horses. All of the above can show the strictness of war horse selection and the harsh requirements. The Iron Cavalry of the Great Qin State is indeed awesome, and no one can defeat them in the world. It is no wonder that they are awesome with such strict selection of war horses. However, the horses on the grassland, where Qin Yu is located, are of excellent breeds, with strong bones and tall bodies. They are just a little thin, because the grass is not good in winter, but he has alfalfa, a magical horse breeding item, so he doesn't have to worry at all. Almost most of the horses in the North City Horse Farm are over 160 centimeters tall, and 70% of them can serve as war horses. As for the selection criteria of knights, 6 strategies. Military knights mentioned. The method of selecting knights is to select those who are under 40 years old, over 7 feet 5 inches tall, strong and agile, and superb. Those who can ride and shoot, move forward and backward, cross trenches, climb hills, take risks, cross large swamps, rush against strong enemies, and cause chaos in the crowd, are called military knights, and they must be treated with respect. From this, we can see that there are 6 conditions for selecting cavalry. Young and strong men under the age of 40, over 7 feet 5 inches tall, strong, agile and light, skilled in riding and shooting, good at controlling mounts, moving forward and backward freely, and able to cross dangerous obstacles and cross large swamps, and are smart and brave. The fact that cavalry could become the overlord on the ancient battlefield is closely related to the strict selection of knights and the harshness of war horses. But now that Qin Yu has a militia training camp, most of these conditions can be met. Increase 1 star of intelligence to make it smart. Increase 1 star of command to make it able to discern the situation. Increase 1 star of agility to make it agile and nimble. Increase 1 star of force to make it skilled, and increase 1 star of physique to make it strong. As for the rest, just train more. What's more, the opponents of the cavalry are primitive people and players with the same civilization, combat power as him, so they will definitely be able to dominate the battlefield under various harsh conditions. Qin Yu has already taken out the civilization points obtained from the sale of the 3 items from the mall this morning. A total of 32,000 civilization points, but minus 10% of the transaction tax. The final 28,800 plus his remaining 1,600 is 30,400. I wanted to upgrade the militia training camp directly this morning, but later I found that the training camp that has been opened for training can only be opened again after the training period. Therefore, Qin Yu had to give up and wait 4 days. However, these few days can allow everyone to choose a war horse that suits them in the horse farm and tame them. Qin Yu had people move over a total of more than 500 sets of horse equipment. They were horse bridles, saddles, and stirrups. As for horseshoes, there was no bronze available now, so naturally there was no way to get them. However, it is worth mentioning that stirrups are made of leather instead of iron. Although there are some differences in performance, it is better to have them than not. In the following time, Qin Yu asked everyone to go into the stables in teams to start selecting and taming horses. Qin Yu directly ordered people to drag some horses that did not meet the standards of war horses into the small stables on the other side. For this kind of horses that cannot serve as war horses, the short and thin horses are also called nags. According to the ancient method of handling, their round briskets are castrated and then responsible for pulling carriages or chariots. Horses will become more docile after being castrated, but Qin Yu did not dare to do so. If they were cut to death due to inflammation, the loss would be great. Moreover, castration is not a necessary condition for horses used to pull carriages, so Qin Yu did not force them to do so. Taming horses is not only a technical job, but also a physical job. The more talented and physically fit people are, the faster they can tame horses, and the better the tamed war horses they can make. Therefore, the better will become better, and the weaker will become weaker. After 5 days, the 500 new recruits who were archers were just able to climb on the horseback. This progress was already great. Qin Yu was standing in front of the militia training camp waiting for the soldiers in the previous training camp to finish. After a while, the gate of the training camp was slowly opened, and 100 strong and tall soldiers slowly lined up and walked out. Not only was everyone's height almost the same, all above 178 centimeters, but even the muscle content of their bodies was almost the same. It took only 5 days to train 100 strong men. You should know that before the training, many soldiers were only about 1.6 meters tall, and some were less than 1.5 meters tall. Now, they are like villagers who have been to the military academy for a few years and returned to the village with dignity. Even their temperament has become much more majestic. Ji Woo, how about filling this team of 100 new soldiers into the Imperial Guards? Qin Yu smiled and turned around to look at Ji Woo and said. Ji Woo was stunned. Are you serious? Of course it's true. You can take them away, and the training will be in charge of you guys. Qin Yu waved his hand and said. Yes, I will definitely live up to the trust of the clan leader. Ji Woo shouted excitedly, and then led this team of new soldiers directly to the Imperial Guards training camp. The quality of the source of soldiers is like a person's potential. The better the quality, the higher the potential, and the stronger they will eventually grow. Looking at the empty militia training camp, Qin Yu's consciousness moved and called out the control light curtain, and then clicked on the upgrade position. 10,000 civilization points disappeared in an instant. Then the attributes on the light curtain changed. Intermediate militia training camp. Current status. Not opened. Training conditions. 1 round of training will be carried out for every 5,000 civilization points, lasting for 5 days, and the maximum number of people is limited to 500. Attributes. Same as the primary training camp. Upgrade. Consume 100,000 civilization points to upgrade to the advanced militia training camp, and the number of trainees per session will be increased to 1,000. Chapter 105 National Criminal Tribunal. After the militia training camp was upgraded from the primary level to the intermediate level, 3 changes occurred. One was that the number of civilization points consumed for each training period increased from 1,000 to 5,000. The second was that the number of people increased from 100 to 500. Finally, the area was twice as large as before. The efficiency was also improved a lot. The time to train 100 people can now train 500 people. In general, the 10,000 civilization points were worth it. At Qin Yu's urging, the 500 recruits lined up and walked in. Then Qin Yu called out the light curtain to confirm the start of the training period, and 5,000 civilization points passed in an instant. The more than 30,000 civilization points earned were only a few days old, and 15,000 were reduced in an instant, leaving 15,400. Seeing that the militia training camp had already started to operate, Qin Yu estimated the time in his mind. The cavalry could officially enter the training in 5 days. Yu Ya was responsible for teaching archery, and Yu Ming was responsible for teaching spearmanship. As for riding, no one was good at it, so practice makes perfect. However, with all the attributes already high and the effect of the 10x army training game card, Qin Yu believed that 1 month would be enough to build an invincible cavalry team on the grassland. Chief, everything is ready. A guard came from a distance and whispered in his ear. Qin Yu nodded slightly and turned to get on the carriage. Soon after, the carriage slowly drove towards the inner city. The 4 outer cities in Longqing are East City, West City, South City, and North City. At this time, many tribesmen in the 4 outer cities are walking together and rushing towards the inner city. An old man who was not young and had a hunched back was walking and talking to the people around him, leaning on a wooden stick. I heard that someone has violated the 9 civil laws newly promulgated by the tribe leader. He will be executed by the law enforcement team presided over by the tribe leader himself. A man next to him whispered, "It is said that he will be hanged." How terrible. The old man looked over angrily. Don't you see what crime the man has committed? He defected to the enemy, disclosed the location of the tribe, and intended to do things that would harm the lives of the tribe's members. If the enemy was strong this time, the lives of more than 1,000 people in Coal Valley would be in danger. So serious? Another man exclaimed. The old man nodded and continued, although this law is severe, we will not be punished if we do not violate it. Not only that, it can also protect us. Those who fight without authorization and injure others will be severely punished. With this law, we don't have to worry about our safety in the future. You are right. Someone was beaten half to death in the middle of the night before, which scared everyone else. The man next to him couldn't help but echoed. Okay, let's go. The old man didn't say much and hurried forward with his wooden stick. At this time, the inner city was already overcrowded. Everyone gathered around the high platform where the king's tripod was placed to watch this national criminal trial. Beru was tied to the wooden frame in front of the high platform. As long as the rope responsible for fixing the height was cut off from behind, he would be quickly lowered, and the rope around his neck would slowly tighten until he suffocated to death. As the tribesmen in Longqing gradually poured into the inner city, Kishi slowly climbed onto the high platform at Qin Yu's nod. This national criminal trial will be held under the watchful eyes of the king's tripod and the clan leader. Under the watchful eyes of the king's tripod, anyone who dares to challenge the majesty of the criminal law will be punished. The military has military law, and the people naturally have civil law. In the past 5 days, the members of the law enforcement team have conveyed the 9 laws of the civil law to everyone, and this national criminal trial also means that the 9 laws of the civil law will be officially promulgated and implemented. Kishi continued with a stern face. Let's start repeating the 9 laws of the civil law. Law 1. Those who steal will be punished with 20 canings at the lightest, and caning to death at the worst. Law 2. Those who fight and disrupt the order of the city will be punished with 40 canings at the lightest, and caning to death at the worst. Law 3. Those who injure others or cause death will be punished with 40 canings at the lightest, and hanging at the worst. Law 4. Those who use violence to force others' will be punished with 40 canings at the lightest, and hanging at the worst. Law 5. Those who delay and miss work will be punished with 20 canings at the lightest, and 50 canings at the worst. Law 6. Anyone who uses power to do things other than official business shall be punished with 20 strokes of a cane at the least, and dismissal and 50 strokes of a cane at the most serious. Law 7. Anyone who does things that endanger the tribe and the people shall be punished with 50 strokes of a cane at the least, and hanging at the most serious. Law 8. Anyone who knows the truth, but does not report it, shields others, or distorts the facts shall be punished with 40 strokes of a cane at the least, and shall be punished with the same crime as the official, or 50 strokes of a cane at the most serious. Law 9. Anyone who spreads rumors, maliciously talks about officials, causes panic, and incites the people shall be punished with 40 strokes of a cane at the least, and hanging at the most serious. The above 9 laws are not the final version of the law. Every time a reform is made, or a new law is added, a criminal trial meeting will be held, and the tribe leader will personally announce the crime of the criminal Beru. Kishi walked down after he finished speaking, and then Qin Yu slowly climbed onto the high platform of the king's tripod. Looking at the dense crowd below, countless eyes were fixed on him, with admiration, respect, envy, expectation, fear. Qin Yu looked calm, and did not show any nervousness. He had been here for nearly 4 months, and had experienced many ups and downs to develop the tribe from a small tribe of more than 30 people to a large tribe of more than 7,000 people. Qin Yu had experienced a lot, and his heart had long been adapted to calm down. My fellow tribesmen, I'm Yu, the chief of the dragon tribe. Since I became the chief, the dragon tribe is no longer weak, no longer afraid of any tribe, and even has become a feared existence for other tribes. In winter, the tribesmen no longer have to endure the cold, and no longer have to go hungry. Only when you are well fed, warmly dressed, and live well, can the dragon tribe become strong. Now, some people want to destroy the dragon tribe's path to strength, and want to threaten the safety of many tribesmen of the dragon tribe. Therefore, I have promulgated this 9 laws of civil law. The 9 laws are laws to protect the good, and punish the evil. You don't have to worry. Only the evil will be severely punished. Do you see Beru tied to the gallows? Qin Yu pointed at the figure on the rack in front and shouted loudly. He violated Law 7, intended to endanger the tribe and the tribesmen, defected to the enemy, and leaked tribal information, violated Law 8, distorted the facts, and spread lies. His crime should be hanged. A roar aroused the emotions of the crowd. A shocking shout broke out from the dense crowd, sweeping around the entire inner city like an undercurrent. Kill him. Kill him. Kill him. Qin Yu raised his hand to signal, and everyone fell silent instantly. Those who violate the law will be severely punished. Those who endanger the tribesmen shall be killed. He shouted loudly, execute. As soon as Qin Yu finished speaking, the law enforcement team members in the back took axes and instantly chopped at the fixed rope. There was a whoosh. Beru's whole body fell instantly, and the rope around his neck was instantly tightened. His face instantly turned red, his veins were exposed, and his body kept twisting. After struggling for a long time, he finally stopped moving. Those who trigger the law will be severely punished. Those who endanger the tribesmen shall be killed. A loud shout suddenly came from the crowd, and then everyone began to follow and shouted loudly, those who trigger the law will be severely punished. Those who endanger the tribesmen shall be killed. Those who trigger the law will be severely punished. Those who endanger the tribesmen shall be killed. Chapter 106 Strange Valley. Why do you think Lord Li wants us to search the valleys in the mountains and forests every day? A team of 10 people wandered in the densely wooded mountains and forests, and one of them couldn't help but curiously said, maybe they want to build a new city? Another person said uncertainly, maybe it's the clan leader's idea. I guess they want to build a new city? The population in Langcheng has increased a lot recently. Another person guessed. Everyone chatted while walking. Perhaps they had an answer to this topic. Everyone was silent for a moment, and then someone brought up another topic. The law enforcement team that came yesterday said that they were popularizing and promulgating the 9 civil laws. Have you memorized them all? What's there to memorize? Don't steal or rob. Be a decent person, and no one will punish you. That's right. Another person responded. Hey, look. Is there something passing by? One person suddenly pointed at the shadow that went by in front and exclaimed, I can see clearly that it seems to be a deer. Chase it. One person shouted and rushed over with a spear. The others followed closely behind. Don't let it run away. I haven't tasted venison for a long time. Someone in the team shouted excitedly. Then everyone chased it all the way and came to a big mountain. It ran into the cave. One person shouted anxiously and then shot the spear in his hand into the cave with a whoosh. Everyone only heard the wail of a deer from the cave in front. Hit it. Everyone was overjoyed and ran over to the cave. The cave was 3 meters high and 3 meters wide. Looking at the dark view inside, everyone looked at each other. There won't be any wild animals in here. What are you afraid of? We have a lot of people. One person shouted with a stone spear in his hand. Go in and take a look. Another person bravely picked up the stone spear and walked in. Seeing someone taking the lead, everyone followed him into the cave. 3 or 5 meters deep, everyone saw blood on the ground. The deer should not be dead, but it is seriously injured. Chase it and take a look. One person observed the blood on the ground and couldn't help but judge. Everyone nodded and continued to walk deeper into the cave. After walking about 30 meters, there was a corner in front of them, and it seemed that there was a light source shining in. Everyone's faces revealed a look of surprise, and they continued to move forward cautiously. After passing the corner, the cave suddenly became bright. Everyone looked up and saw that there was another cave entrance more than 20 meters ahead. It seems that there is a valley ahead. The deer fell at the cave entrance in front. Go and have a look. One person said and ran over. After a while, everyone walked straight to the cave, entranced through the dim cave. Looking outside the cave, they couldn't help but look dazed and opened their mouths. This. Where is this? One person asked in surprise. Following his gaze, I saw that the world outside the cave was a vast and boundless giant valley surrounded by green mountains and various flowers and trees standing in it. The emerald green lake, the pink sea of flowers, the towering green peaks, and the colorful fruit trees lingering between the green peaks. There are thousands of animals in the valley, chasing and playing, which is obviously a green water and green mountain paradise. What is shocking is not only the beauty of the scenery, but also the season. You know, it is still winter outside, with ice and snow, freezing ground and cold weather, and white everywhere. The cold wind makes people feel bone-chillingly cold. But when everyone walked into this valley, they found that the cold seemed to have disappeared, and there was no trace of winter color, as if they had suddenly walked into summer. It was really amazing. Maybe this valley is what Lord Lee wants to find. It should be right. It's so beautiful here, that it's simply a fairyland. Carry the deer back, and report this place to the city lord, as soon as possible. The captain of the 10 people made a decision immediately, and everyone nodded, and left the cave, and returned to the direction of Coal Valley, North City Cavalry Training Ground. At this time, it has been almost 10 days, since the second phase of the militia training camp's 500 recruits were trained, which means that the 500 cavalry recruits have been out for nearly 5 days, and the third phase of the 500 spearmen recruits have begun. The 500 recruits in the cavalry training ground have changed their previous decadent and thin temperament. Now they have become mighty, tall, and muscular, riding on horses, and galloping in the training ground. Qin Yu has used the 10-fold army training game card for 5 days. If the results of 5 days of training are multiplied tenfold, these 500 cavalrymen are equivalent to 50 days of training so far, a total of 30 days. And with the blessing of horse bridles, saddles, stirrups and other horse equipment, and the full attributes added by the militia training camp, the new recruits are like talented geniuses. They are now familiar with riding skills, and their archery and spear piercing skills are also improving by leaps and bounds. With the military level of the primitive era at this time, the cavalry built by Qin Yu can charge the enemy even without heavy armor. The horses with excellent bloodline and strong physique can knock the enemy to pieces with their own strength. As long as the enemy is not wearing iron armor, it is easy to kill. When the enemy is strong, guerrilla long-range shooting. When the enemy is weak, charge with spears. Qin Yu had probably already prepared the equipment for the cavalry. The weapons were bone spears, long wooden bows, and bone arrows. The armor was leather breastplate, chest and back connected, leather shoulder armor, leather arm guards, etc. Cavalry generally would not be equipped with too heavy armor, which would affect the knight's flexibility on horseback. Of course, heavy cavalry was another matter. Qin Yu was about to continue watching, when he suddenly found that the sound transmitting conch hanging around his waist suddenly emitted a spiritual wave. Lee's sound transmission? Qin Yu asked in surprise. After Yumin came back, the other sound transmitting conch was handed over to Lee to facilitate the transmission of important news about Dangshan, Pan's Han City, and Coal City. Qin Yu took out the conch and immersed his consciousness in it when he heard a familiar voice. Chief, Dangshan has discovered a strange valley. It is freezing cold outside, but it is as hot as summer inside. You should come and see it yourself. Qin Yu was stunned and a little confused after hearing it. It is freezing cold outside, but it is as hot as summer inside? Is there such a magical place? No, I really have to go and see it myself. Qin Yu made a decision immediately, turned to the guards beside him and ordered, "Let the guards prepare. Follow me to the Coal Valley. I will notify them right away." The guard bowed respectfully and turned to walk towards the guards' training ground. After a long time, a large carriage pulled by 4 horses, followed by a convoy of 100 guards, slowly drove out of the inner city and passed through the east city gate and headed towards Dangshan. Nowadays, there is no tribe in the eastern part of the grassland that dares to attack the soldiers and civilians of the dragon tribe. No one dares to attack even an unarmed tribesman. The reason is that, as long as they are caught with a little handle, the army of the dragon tribe can arrive in an instant, surround them directly, kill the culprit, and then take the rest of the people and the supplies of the tribe back. It is said that the dragon tribe also has a mysterious team that can monitor the eastern grassland. Once a tribe member is injured, an eagle cry will be heard in the sky, and the tribe will perish soon. At this time, the dragon tribe had obviously become the overlord of the eastern grasslands, and no one dared to challenge its sharp weapons and armor. It is not an exaggeration to say that during this period of time, G went out to fight, and there were even incidents where the entire tribe surrendered without bloodshed. Chapter 107 Natural Wonders. Powerful Attributes. Coal City. At this time, Qin Yu brought Ji Wu and Zhu Xiang, as well as 100 elite soldiers of the Imperial Guard, to Coal City. As for Zhou, he stayed in the city to train the 100 new soldiers of the Imperial Guard. At this time, in the city lord's mansion, Li was reporting the situation to Qin Yu. Reporting to the clan leader, I have been sending people to search for the valley you want to find in the mountains and forests these days. But there is almost no one that can reach the kind you want to find. But a member of militia team went out to look for it this morning and ran into it. But I haven't seen it in person yet, and I contacted you with the conch shell as soon as possible. According to the description of that team of militia, they were originally just chasing a wild deer and chased it into a cave, but they didn't expect that the other end of the cave was connected to an endless flat valley with birds singing and flowers blooming, green mountains and green waters, and many wild animals chasing and playing, just like midsummer. Qin Yu nodded and said, hearing is false, seeing is believing. Notify them immediately, let them lead the way and we will go over to take a look. Yes. Li responded and walked out. A group of exploration teams gathered at the entrance of the valley. With Qin Yu's order, the militia led the way and everyone moved in the direction of the strange valley. Fortunately, the militia team specially marked some places on the way back, so everyone did not take any detours. After about half an hour of traveling through the mountains and forests, Qin Yu led the team to the cave mentioned by the militia. Is this cave dangerous? Qin Yu looked at the dark vision inside and couldn't help asking. Chief, we will lead the way, the militia captain said, and walked in with the team. Qin Yu nodded slightly and followed the team, but his right hand had already slowly grasped the hilt of the sword at his waist. He gave the original ring-headed sword to the. Now Qin Yu's weapon is the fine iron hand sword, a green quality magic weapon, but Qin Yu thinks it is sharper than the ring-headed sword. The hand sword made of fine iron chopped hard on the stone, and the stone cracked, but the blade was fine, which shows how sharp and tough it is. Qin Yu followed carefully behind, ready to connect to the golden energy of the king's tripod for protection. Although the militia had walked through it before, they still had to be cautious. After all, they only had one life. How could they develop civilization without people? As the team in front walked out of the valley, the light instantly shone on Qin Yu's face. Looking at the suddenly open environment, Qin Yu was also confused. Is it really summer? Looking at the green water and green mountains in front of him, there are also many fruit trees, and there are large tracts of flowers in front of him. There are many animals shuttling through the flat and vast valley. Qin Yu rubbed his chin with the knuckles of his right hand. He estimated that such a large valley could at least cultivate 10,000 acres of fertile land. System prompt. Congratulations on discovering the primary natural wonder Four Seasons Fairy Valley. Four Seasons Fairy Valley. Attribute 1. The four seasons in the Fairy Valley are like spring and summer, and they will never wither. Attribute 2. The fertility of the soil in the Fairy Valley only increases. Attribute 3. The maturity period of crops planted in the Fairy Valley is reduced by 50%. Attribute 4. The soil in the Fairy Valley has the characteristics of planting spiritual seeds, spiritual plants and spiritual medicines, and the growth period will be reduced by 50%. It can also absorb the spiritual power of spiritual materials and transform it into nutrients to improve the fertility of the land. Spectacular income. Get 500 civilization points every day. Must be stationed to generate income. Qin Yu was stunned. Looking at the prompt that suddenly appeared in his mind, he immediately opened the light curtain and carefully checked the properties described above. After reading it carefully from beginning to end twice, Qin Yu couldn't help but show joy on his face. This time he really came to the right place. He originally just wanted to find a flat valley to plant some food casually, Any harvest is a good harvest, right? Who would have thought that Lee really brought him a surprise? The fertility of the land in this 4-season fairy valley is surprisingly high. To see whether the soil is fertile or lean, first look at the color. The darker the color, the fertile the land. The second is to see the depth of the soil layer, that is, the planting layer. Qin Yu asked people to dig nearly 1 meter, but they still haven't reached the limit. The third is to see the suitability of the soil. Generally, the soil of a field with fertile soil is loose and easy to cultivate. Dry cultivation is like incense ash, and wet cultivation is like sugaring, which is a phenomenon that is suitable for cultivation, and the land is extremely fertile. Qin Yu probably only knows so much, but no matter which one, the soil in the valley meets the conditions one by one, and even exceeds the conditions. Not only that, the strange scene of this valley is actually a natural wonder, with a unique attribute, that the 4 seasons are like spring, and the fertility of the soil will not decrease, no matter how it is planted. More importantly, the maturity cycle of crops has been reduced by half. Take rice as an example. The maturity period is about 4 months and close to 5 months. If it is planted in the fairy valley, it can be reduced by half, that is, it can mature in at most 3 months. Not only that, the climate and seasons in the valley do not change, which means that it can be planted at any time, and the fertility of the soil will not decrease. After a full calculation, it can be sown 4 times a year. 4 harvests a year. How much grain can be produced? It is simply a super grain producing wonder of extraordinary significance. And if the land is divided according to Zhao method, at least these can reach the standard of top quality fertile land. Assuming that 10,000 mu of fertile land is reclaimed, and each mu produces 800 kilograms of grain, that is 8 million kilograms of grain. If we add 4 sowings a year, it means that the dragon tribe can bring 32 million kilograms of grain a year, which can feed nearly 100,000 people. And looking at the quality of the soil in this valley, it is a bit conservative to say that 1 mu produces 800 kilograms of grain. Lee. After a moment of silence, Qin Yu continued, this valley is extremely important to the dragon tribe. You order people to come here to inspect the situation every day. A team of 50 people will be stationed in the valley to take turns every day. I need to go back to Langcheng to hold a clan meeting for the specific situation. After giving the order, Qin Yu led the team directly down the mountain. As for the affairs of the 4 Seasons Fairy Valley, Lee was temporarily in charge. Without Qin Yu's order, the tribe members were prohibited from entering the valley. Secondly, they could get 500 civilization points every day when stationed. Therefore, Qin Yu asked him to send 50 people to station there to get some civilization points. Now with the 4 Seasons Fairy Valley and the giant stone statue, Qin Yu can get 700 civilization points every day. Everything is a long-term thing. 700 a day is 7,000 in 10 days, and 21,000 a month, which is not a small amount. Although it is not as fast as selling props, it is not realistic to have so many props for Qin Yu to sell. After going down the mountain, Qin Yu boarded the carriage, and the team followed the carriage and slowly drove towards the direction of Langcheng. This trip was fruitful, and Qin Yu's worries were faintly relieved. After all, it is a pain that the grassland cannot be used for farming, but there are also advantages. That is, there are enough warhorse resources for civilization to develop cavalry. Chapter 108. The Patriarch makes sense. After returning to Langcheng, Qin Yu first asked people to summon the tribe's high-level officials to the meeting hall to attend the tribe meeting. Secondly, he took time to place the fertilizer pool building that he had drawn before. Now that farming is possible, fertilizer production must be accelerated. In addition, there are a large number of agricultural tools and plows for turning over the soil, and cultivating the land must be made as soon as possible. There are more than 1,000 cattle in the tribe, and now they can finally be put to use. After arriving at the North City, Qin Yu took out the reward and then threw it on the open space in front of him. Then a fertilizer pool covering an area of more than 300 square meters appeared in Qin Yu's field of vision. Fertilizer pool, current fertilizer types, green fertilizer, gray fertilizer, miscellaneous fertilizer, maximum productivity 100. Each productivity can produce 10 kilograms of fertilizer per hour. Tip: green fertilizer is suitable for cultivating crops for feeding livestock, miscellaneous fertilizer is suitable for cultivating crops, and gray fertilizer is suitable for crops such as fruits and vegetables. Qin Yu looked at the introduction on the building screen and couldn't help but exclaimed. In addition to the most basic tips, there is even a small question mark at the bottom. Click it and you will find a more detailed introduction. It also describes the materials and methods needed to make 3 types of fertilizers. Its green menu uses the composting method. First, you need to use the ash produced by burning straw or other plants, then add weeds and tree branches and leaves into a pit and use high temperature and rain to rot the weeds to make fertilizer. This is the initial green manure. If you want the effect of green manure to be better, you need to replace the weeds with the residue left after the beans are squeezed for oil, that is, bean cake, so that the green manure produced will have stronger fertility. Miscellaneous fertilizer is mainly made by composting, which is mainly made by mixing straw, weeds, mud, etc. with animal excrement. Therefore, it is also called miscellaneous fertilizer, which is the basic version that buildings can make. To make the effect of miscellaneous fertilizer better, although buildings cannot produce it, they give methods. Commonly known as the dung method, it is to spread a layer of plants in the animal pen and compost them through the trampling and excretion of animals. Fertilizers made in this way are not only rich in nutrients and have long-lasting fertility, but also will not burn the roots and stems of crops. Although the composting method looks more smelly, the compost not only has no odor after it is made, but has the fragrance of soil. Ash fertilizer uses the river accumulation method. The main material is the silt in the river. The silt in the river is rich in trace element after the activities and excretion of fish and various aquatic organisms. When making it, the silt in the river is dug out and then mixed with other materials for drying. What Qin Yu doesn't know is that the silt from the lake should also be able to replace the silt from the river, right? You will know when you try it. According to the output of the fertilizer pool, 100 civilians can produce 1000 kilograms of fertilizer per hour. However, this may not be enough for 1 acre of land. It is estimated that, if the output is 24 hours a day in shifts, that is, 24,000 kilograms is enough for the fertilizer of more than 10 acres of land. After leaving Bicheng, Qin Yu happened to meet C2 who was about to go to the meeting hall. So the two of them walked together and talked about the recent situation in Langcheng. The carriage finally stopped at the door of the inner city meeting hall. Qin Yu and C2 got off the carriage together and walked into the hall. Everyone was already there. Qin Yu slowly walked to the main seat on the high platform and sat down. His eyes swept through everyone and finally stopped on G. G, tell me about the results and gains in the recent period of time. G nodded slightly and stood up and said, in the past 10 days, I led the army to capture a total of 9 tribes. 3 of the tribes even gave up resistance just by hearing the reputation of the dragon tribe, and the entire tribe was captured without bloodshed. In terms of population, about 4,000 people were captured, and there were countless livestock of all kinds. There were also a lot of animal skins, weapons, and fodder. One of the tribes had a witch, who was said to have witchcraft, that could cure many diseases, but he ran away in advance, and was not caught. According to the information from Xiaoyu scouts, he should have fled to the grizzly tribe in the northwest. The grizzly tribe has a large population, and the army is very powerful, with a physique like a grizzly bear, so I did not take the initiative to lead the army to attack. Qin Yu nodded after hearing this. In 10 days, the population of the tribe increased by 4,000 people. Qin Yu was quite satisfied with this efficiency. It is estimated that after the 30-day exemption card is over, the population of Dragon City alone will be able to break through to about 20,000. After waving his hand to let G sit down, Qin Yu looked at Yi, who was in charge of the witch hall. What's the situation in the witch hall recently? Qin Yu asked calmly. Reporting to the clan leader, the witch hall currently has 19 witch children and 3 wizards including me. One of them was promoted from a witch child. He is extremely talented and can fully comprehend the art of blood covenant in just half a month. Yi bowed and replied. Find a time to let this young wizard meet me, the clan leader. Qin Yu smiled and continued. How is the research on the blood burning art going? Currently, I'm the only one in the witch hall who has fully comprehended it. Yi's expression was still a little proud when he spoke. Well, it's good. If there are no permanents equally, we will prepare to apply it to the Imperial Guards first. This matter will be implemented after the training of the Imperial Guards recruits is completed. I understand. Yi nodded and then sat back at Qin Yu's wave of his hand. Seeing that he had understood almost everything, Qin Yu began to talk about business. At present, our tribe can only obtain food through hunting, gathering, and raising livestock. This is unstable. If we want the tribe to have a prosperous and strong population, a stable source of food is very important, so I plan to start an era of universal farming. Just this morning, we discovered a valley in a certain area of Dangshan that can produce a large amount of food for the tribe. Qin Yu raised the milk on the table and took a sip to moisten his throat, then continued, to start farming, we need to do 3 things. The first is to migrate to the valley, the second is to make the farm tools needed for farming, and the third is to make a large amount of fertilizer for farming. As for the immigration, I plan to migrate 2,000 people from Langcheng. The specific establishment of the branch city and the subsequent management of the branch city will be left to Ya. Qin Yu looked at the confused Ya on the left and couldn't help but comfort her. Don't be afraid, you are also an old man of the dragon tribe. It's not difficult to believe in yourself. Yuming is so stupid and nothing happened. Ya heaved a sigh of relief when she heard this and said, the clan leader is right. I will never let you down. Yuming, am I really that stupid? Question mark? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 109, Purple Talent Book, Recognize People with a Wisdom Eye. At present, the total population of the army and civilians in Langcheng is about 8,400 people. In addition to the 2,000 ordinary tribesmen who have moved there, there must also be a garrison army. The strategic significance of the Four Seasons Fairy Valley is very large, even higher than that of the Coal Valley. After all, it is the future food lifeline of the dragon tribe, and it must not be neglected. At present, the total force of the 3 cities of the dragon tribe is about 3,000 people, and this is the number after counting the 100 new recruits of the Imperial Guard, 500 new recruits of the cavalry, and 500 new recruits of the spearmen. The training time of the spearmen is short. Now with the militia training camp, they can form effective combat effectiveness after simple training in almost half a month. Therefore, Qin Yu decided to assign 300 spearmen to the Four Seasons Fairy Valley, in addition to 100 archers, and then add a large yellow crossbow, 5 catapults and 30 catapults. The entrance of the Four Seasons Fairy Valley is extremely narrow, and it is impossible to use siege equipment at all, and it can only be attacked by manpower. But the fear is that the other side will use shield soldiers to press forward one by one, so Qin Yu will send the rhubarb crossbow and catapult. It can play a huge role at the critical moment. The thick and fierce iron crossbow arrows can break a gap at the moment of firing the bed crossbow to resist the enemy who is pressing in. The same is true for the catapult, which simply and roughly smashes the enemy's shield formation. As for the construction and farming plans of the Four Seasons Fairy Valley, one is responsible for the construction team, and the other is responsible for the 50 civilians who have learned farming knowledge from Zhao Yi last time. They will form an agricultural farming team and lead 2,000 tribesmen to reclaim tens of thousands of acres of good land at the fastest speed. Then they will need to turn the soil, cultivate the land, sow seeds, fertilize, irrigate, weed, etc. Cultivating 4 times a year is not an easy workload. It will also require continuous harvesting, grain harvesting and transportation. The only thing that doesn't need to worry about is the problem of grain storage. This Four Seasons granary is really a match with the Four Seasons Fairy Valley. If it could be discovered earlier, Qin Yu might have built this building in the Fairy Valley. It's just too late now. At that time, we can only transport food back and forth with more effort. However, with the existence of horse carriages, it is not too much effort. In the remaining time, Qin Yu ordered C2 to have people make more farm tools. In addition, they also need to collect more materials for making fertilizers. The dragon tribe has no shortage of livestock manure. There is a lot of this kind of thing. Now it is perfect to use it as fertilizer. The tribe meeting lasted for about 2 hours. Qin Yu later learned from Kishi about the recent implementation of the 9 laws of the civil law. Compared with the past, the conflicts within the tribe are rapidly decreasing, and the number of thieves is also decreasing. After all, the law enforcement team of more than 100 people does nothing all day long, but wanders around the city. After finding out where there is something, they will immediately start to arrest people. Due to the implementation of the reward mechanism, all tribesmen who expose the crimes of others will receive some rewards, such as better daily necessities, or some more delicious food, etc. The law enforcement team's law hall is built in the inner city. Recently, almost every day, people come to expose those who have triggered the law, but still do not change. Although there were cases of revenge and exposure later, no one dared to do it after being beaten half to death or even hanged. In short, whether it was Langcheng, Panshancheng or Coal City, the order was gradually getting better, and the political system of the Long tribe was slowly moving towards national civilization. The public ownership of the early primitive tribes was also slowly changing to state ownership, and Qin Yu planned to develop a private ownership social system. After implementing the release of text, the emergence of text is the most important step in the leapfrog development of civilization. At the same time, issuing text is not a simple matter, so Qin Yu did not rush to implement it. The main reason is that nowadays, time is used for the most basic development. If you don't develop, you will be beaten, so the progress of text has been delayed. After the tribe meeting, Qin Yu summoned several carpenters with better craftsmanship in the tribe. After Qin Yu demonstrated, and told many times, several people finally understood his ideas, and then began to make attempts. Qin Yu only understood some concepts, but did not understand the specific structure. The most primitive soil turning tool is the hoe, but it is controlled by manpower, and the curved plow seems to be controlled by manpower as well, while the plow controlled by animal power probably appeared in the Warring States period. It is actually difficult to invent a plow for farming with livestock, but it is also easy. An excellent plow is not just about plowing forward, but also about turning around, and being easy to control. A clumsy plow is easy to make, as long as it can turn the soil. After all, it is a primitive age, so why would you want a bicycle? Therefore, under Qin Yu's constant narration, a group of carpenters constantly updated and tried it, and a simple plow for farming with livestock finally came out. Qin Yu named it the plow. Congratulations on making the primitive plow and getting civilization points x 2000. This is the effect I want. Tell it to speed up production. Qin Yu couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief when he saw the prompt. It's okay as long as it can be used. At least it's more convenient than manpower. As for you being excellent, you will be given a bowl of fish soup and mutton every 3 days. Go and get busy. Several people's faces suddenly lit up, and they shouted to thank the clan leader. Qin Yu waved his hand and left here. He got on the carriage and drove all the way to the door of the meeting hall. After getting off the carriage, Qin Yu walked in. At this time, the meeting hall was empty. Regarding immigration, livestock transfer, fertilizer production, and farm tools, it is estimated that it will take about 10 days before farming can start. However, the defense construction work of Four Seasons Fairy Valley needs to start immediately. After all, there are only about 20 days left before the end of the war exemption card. If the invading enemy is teleported to the vicinity of that place, the loss will be great. Qin Yu, who calmed down, silently took out a bag of gold coins, which contained a total of 6 winner gold coins and 2 loser gold coins. 2 of the loser gold coins were deliberately swiped, and the remaining 6 were also won by G these days. The only pity is that a bloodless battle is not considered a victory, otherwise there should be 9 winner gold coins. In a trance, Qin Yu came to the space of the civilization Xianqi, surrounded by lush cliffs and a majestic 3,000-foot waterfall in front of him. He took a step forward and threw the gold coin in his hand. After a series of splashing sounds, rays of light of different colors rose into the sky and floated in front of Qin Yu. 1 blue, 5 green, 1 white, 1 purple. Qin Yu's eyes suddenly lit up, and he quickly opened the light curtain to check. You consume a primary winner's gold coin and get the talent book Knowing People with Wisdom X1, purple quality. Reward the Deacon of the 4th ranked entity Kanpo for an additional 2,000. The ode update has been paid off. Chapter 110 8 Draw Reward. You consume a primary Victor gold coin and get the talent book Knowing People with Wisdom X1. Purple quality. You consume a primary Victor gold coin and get the building Rammed Earth Wall Stone Kiln X1. Green quality. You consume a primary Victor gold coin and get the weapon Big Yellow Bed Crossbow X1. Green quality. You consume a primary Victor gold coin and get the magic weapon Fine Iron Axe X1. Green quality. You consume a primary Victor gold coin and get the skill book Primary Riding X1. White quality. You consume a primary Victor gold coin and get the Mount Sweat Blooded Horse X1. Green quality. You consume a primary Loser gold coin and get the rare item Treasure Medicine Bag X1. Blue quality. You consume a primary Loser gold coin and get the Prescription Body Forging Prescription X1. Green quality. There are a total of 8 items, among which the most valuable is the purple talent book Knowing People with Wisdom. After learning, you can check the loyalty of your subordinates. Can you even look for it in the trading mall? The price of a purple talent book was as high as 1 million civilization points. And a talent book like Knowing People with Wisdom, that is extremely useful, is simply priceless. The system recommends selling it for 1.5 million civilization points, but there is no one on the market. It is estimated that someone will buy it, even if it is sold several times. After all, being able to check the loyalty of subordinates is of extraordinary significance. As the saying goes, people's hearts are separated by their stomachs. It is possible that a trusted subordinate will suddenly use a knife, which would be a tragedy. Can you happily put away the talent book and turn to look at other rewards? Rammed earth walls are considered to be a common wall in ancient times. The defense power is far higher than that of wooden walls. The main ability of the stone kiln building is to produce rammed earth walls, which is not small. This means that the defense level of the dragon tribe's walls will be upgraded to a whole level. Needless to say, the large yellow bed crossbow, including this one, Qin Yu has 3, which are mainly used to destroy the enemy's siege equipment. Large-scale lethal weapons. Qin Yu looked at the next reward, which was a fine iron axe. It was a two-handed weapon, which could be given to Beard Bear. This time he didn't have to complain about not having a good weapon. Qin Yu thought about it and decided to use the elementary riding skill book for himself. He just happened to give it to a sweat-blooded horse. As the saying goes, horses in ancient times are like modern cars. The better they are, the cooler they are. There are few men who have not imagined riding on horses and galloping, or riding horses and charging on the battlefield. In addition to these items, Qin Yu felt that the items drawn from the remaining 2 loser gold coins were the biggest. 100 Treasure Medicine Bag, a rare item of the ancient Shannon clan, which can give birth to hundreds of medicinal seeds, or copy medicinal seeds. Bodybuilding Prescription. Mix 12 kinds of rare medicinal herbs that strengthen the body, enhance blood, and temper the body and boil them into a bodybuilding medicine soup. After high-intensity exercise, pour it into a bathtub and mix it with warm water. To soak the body for half an hour 2 hours is best. The Bayahu decoction and the current bodybuilding prescriptions are both very useful. One is the army's magic medicine for healing injuries, which can cure almost all injuries and diseases suffered in the war. And the bodybuilding prescriptions are also very useful for strengthening the physique of soldiers in the army. However, the source of medicinal materials is not stable, so this is also a pain. Without a stable source of medicinal materials, these 2 medicines cannot play their true strategic role. Once the usage increases, the supply of medicinal materials is insufficient, and they can only be used by a small number of people. Now that he has the Babayo medicine bag, a rare item, Qin Yu can completely cultivate seeds by himself and plant them in the 4 Seasons Fairy Valley. The next morning, after everyone had breakfast in the meeting hall, Qin Yu accompanied Ya all the way to the gate of East City. I'll leave all kinds of things about Fairy Valley City to you, Ya. Qin Yu patted Ya's shoulder gently. Ya raised her hand and saluted, then said solemnly, please rest assured, clan leader, Ya will definitely live up to your high expectations. Qin Yu nodded, took a wooden box from the guard beside him, and handed it to Yap. These are 5 bottles of Baoyu soup. You keep them for your own use. Be careful, and send someone to take a message if there is any situation. Ya took the box with both hands, then nodded and turned to get on the carriage. Have a safe journey. Qin Yu looked at the migration team and shouted loudly. Looking at Ya's back as she left, Qin Yu silently called out the attribute panel. Name, Yap. Gender, female. Age, 22. Force, physique, agility, intelligence, command, combat talent, long range weapons, talent, good at archery, B level superior, effect, the hit effect of long range. Weapons is greatly improved, and there is a probability of triggering the effect of 100% accuracy. Satisfaction. 65. Loyalty. 96. Smart Eyes for recognizing people has been activated. Hint. 029 is disloyal, 3059 is neutral, 60,100 is loyal. Loyalty is divided into 4 levels. Possible betrayal, difficult betrayal, extremely difficult betrayal, and absolute loyalty. It's really much more comfortable to turn on loyalty. Qin Yu couldn't help but sigh inwardly. The hint shows that loyalty 60,100 is loyalty, and the corresponding values of the 4 loyalty levels should be 6,069, 7,079, 8,089, 90,100. As an old man in the Dragon Tribe headquarters, it is normal for Ya to reach absolute loyalty, that is, die-hard loyalty. At this time, Ya's attributes have improved a lot compared to more than 3 months ago. The only pity is that her upper limit of force is a bit low. As one of the rare commanders of the Dragon Tribe, she will have to be equipped with a bodyguard type general in the future. After the migration team left, Qin Yu took a carriage back to the North City. First, he went to the cavalry training ground to check the progress of the cavalry training, and then came to the guards training ground. At this time, in the training camp, 100 veterans were fighting against 100 new recruits. Both sides were holding wooden swords for training. Although the veteran sword skills were better, the new recruits had been equipped in gold in the militia training camp. With the blessing of all attributes, their qualities in all aspects were very strong, and they learned very quickly, but they were just slightly inferior. Zhu Xiang. Qin Yu shouted at the door. Hey, here I come. When Zhu Xiang saw that the person who came was the patriarch, he immediately ran over. Qin Yu first silently looked at his loyalty. 86 points. Not bad. It is considered the type that is extremely difficult to betray. Such slippery people can reach a loyalty of more than 80. One is related to Qin Yu's trust and treatment, and the second is also closely related to the king's tripod. This is a magic weapon that the chieftain spent a lot of money to get. Take a look. Isn't it more domineering than others? Qin Yu smiled and took a fine iron axe from the carriage, which weighed more than 20 kilograms and nearly 30 kilograms. Zhu Xiang's eyes lit up, and he took the axe with both hands, then stepped back and waved it twice, and his eyes were filled with lingering love. He excitedly bowed and said, "Thank you for your kindness, chieftain. Thank you for the reward." Chapter 111. Weird Loyalty Swing. Qin Yu smiled and nodded, silently looking at the loyalty again. 91 points. Wow. Directly promoted to a die-hard loyalist. It seems that giving gifts is a good way to increase loyalty. Then Qin Yu looked at the loyalty of others. For example, Ji Wu reached 96 points of loyalty. This is related to his talent, while Zua has 90 points of loyalty. Most of the royal guards have a loyalty of around 80, and a small number or some new recruits have a loyalty of between 70 and 80. Overall, Qin Yu is still very satisfied. It is really convenient to be able to check the loyalty of your subordinates, which can avoid many people who have been working hard for many years and finally want to hit Qin Yu head on. After all, the Dragon Tribe has annexed many tribes, and the forces are mixed. It is possible that there are such people. Therefore, Qin Yu spared a day today to check the loyalty of senior figures in various departments. After leaving the Royal Guards training camp, Qin Yu went to the cavalry training ground again. Looking at Yuming's loyalty, it was not surprising that it was indeed very high. 98 points. This is the guy with the highest loyalty Qin Yu has seen so far. After patting Yuming on the shoulder and praising him with a smile, Qin Yu turned around and left. Yuming was stunned for a long time. Before leaving North City, Qin Yu placed the building made of rammed earth walls and summoned a team of civilians to build it. After the construction, it was stored first. After a while, when the population has grown, he will renovate the city wall. By then, Qin Yu estimated that the area of Dragon City will be 5 to 10 times larger than before. After all, the more people there are, the faster it will develop. Although nomadic people do not build cities on the grassland, Qin Yu is different. He must not only beware of the forces on the grassland, but also the player forces that may be teleported to the vicinity of the grassland at any time. Therefore, the construction of a city is necessary. After leaving North City, Qin Yu checked the loyalty of the others one by one. Kishi, the law enforcement officer of the law enforcement team, has a loyalty of 89, which can be passed. C2, the ruling elder of the dragon tribe, has a loyalty of 98, which can be passed. Xiaoyu, captain of the scout team, loyalty 97, passed. G, commander of the Blood Covenant Wolf Riders, loyalty 96, passed. Qin Yu met G when he was leaving the North City. He was stunned when he saw G's loyalty. It stands to reason that G's loyalty should be difficult to improve. Qin Yu expected the result to be more than 80. After a moment of silence, Qin Yu guessed that it might be the loyalty brought by the honor G had gained during this period. And this honor was also indirectly bestowed by Qin Yu. This is a person who laughs face and is conceited. Qin Yu shook his head. As long as an indestructible sharp knife can keep rushing forward for him, Qin Yu doesn't care too much about other things. Then Qin Yu quietly came to the vicinity of the witch hall and saw Yi with a strange look. Yi loyalty 85. Loyalty 68. Qin Yu. Qin Yu rubbed his eyes and looked again. Originally, Yi's loyalty was clearly 85. How come it suddenly became 68? Qin Yu returned to the meeting hall silently with doubts. He would not be stupid enough to question directly. Instead, he asked people to call Kishi and ZHU to come to the meeting hall. Patriarch. The two raised their hands respectfully and saluted, then walked closer. Qin Yu nodded slightly and said, "The great wizard Yi of the witch hall has been acting strange recently. Kishi, you lead a team of law enforcement to focus on the situation of the witch hall. ZHU, you lead the second guard to patrol around. If there is any situation, cooperate with the law enforcement team to take him down." "I understand." The two bowed and responded respectfully. Qin Yu waved his hand, and the two turned and left. After the two left, Qin Yu's consciousness moved and called out the system function panel. Then he clicked on the Warzone Star C map, or 3-dimensional 3D Star C map instantly appeared on the light curtain. Against the purple starry sky background, large and small continents stood in it. In addition to the continents, there were also many resource copies and secret realms standing in it. Qin Yu just suddenly thought of the suspension of the bow and arrow workshop, so he took advantage of his free time to find a resource copy to obtain some resources. According to Zhao, attacking unoccupied copies or secret realms during the free war period will not affect the free war. However, after occupying a copy or secret realm, there is no free war effect. Only the main world has the free war effect. Qin Yu slid his finger on the map, found the location of his civilization, and then looked for a resource copy with the nearest location around. Resource copy, Deer Park, combat power 6000 reserves, 1500 plus horned deer, distance 5 star miles, reconnaissance/invasion. Qin Yu finally stopped his gaze. For this type of resource copy, reconnaissance can obtain the number, type, and equipment of the defenders in the copy. However, it takes 10 civilization points per star, and invasion takes 100 civilization points per star. It's only 50 civilization points. Qin Yu raised his hand and lightly clicked the reconnaissance option. About half a minute later, a reconnaissance message appeared on the light screen. Reconnaissance report. Number of defenders: 600 defenders, 400 stone sword soldiers, 100 hunting archers, 100 wooden spearmen. Defenders equipment: no armor, wooden spears, hunting bows, stone swords, etc. Qin Yu looked at this report and couldn't help but exclaim that the civilization points were well spent. The information in this report was too complete, and even information like no armor was released. However, according to Zhao, the dungeon resources of the warzone map will change with the average strength of the warzone. Not only the combat power of the dungeon defenders, but also the resources will increase. The higher the difficulty of the dungeon resources, the higher the value. According to Zhao, because of the appearance of a player who has been promoted to the Golden World rank in their 49th warzone, the overall strength of the dungeon resources has increased a lot, and even iron ore, saltpeter, sulfur and other resources have begun to appear. There are even dungeons that directly produce crossbows, which made Qin Yu envious. If it is true as he said, then if there are high ranking players in the warzone, or if the ranks are raised together, the resources of the warzone should also increase faster. Unfortunately, players are inherently contradictory, not to mention that there are different races, and it is not easy to develop harmoniously. Shaking his head, Qin Yu stopped thinking about it, and silently clicked on the invasion option. Tip: please select the team configuration for this invasion. Currently, only G and the guards are idle. As for the cavalry, the time for the tenfold training gain card has not yet passed. 1 day is used as 10 days. Qin Yu is reluctant to let them waste it. After a moment of entanglement, Qin Yu confirmed the candidates. The generals are Ji Wu, Zhu, and Zhu Xiang. The army is 50 Blood Covenant Wolf Riders, 100 guards, 100 archers, 200 spearmen, and 50 slingers with 10 catapults. After everything is ready, Qin Yu directly chose to confirm. Chapter 112 Invasion Resource Copy. In a trance. When Qin Yu opened his eyes again, the surrounding scene was no longer in the meeting hall. The lush green grass suddenly made him see some visual differences. After all, he was originally living in the winter with charcoal fires and frozen ground, but now he suddenly appeared in the warm summer. Tip: you can choose to retreat directly before you show hostility to the copy defenders, but the civilization points consumed will not be withdrawn. Tip: after you win the battle with the defenders, you will get the right to open the space door once. You can open the space door to return after collecting the copy resources. The space door can be opened for up to 24 hours. After that, it will consume 100 civilization points for each hour. Qin Yu looked at the prompt that suddenly appeared in front of him and was stunned. Then he silently read it carefully twice and then clicked to close it. The surrounding teams gradually emerged one by one. At this time, everyone's faces were a little confused, and they obviously didn't know what happened. Qin Yu shouted loudly, "Don't panic, I teleported you here. Our goal is to conquer the deer park ahead." As Qin Yu explained, everyone slowly calmed down, and then they were all amazed at the patriarch's godlike means. Ji Wu and his companions were much calmer. After all, they had experienced it once. Qin Yu ignored him and looked forward. About 700 to 800 meters away, there was a deer park with an area of more than 10,000 square meters. It was surrounded by a circle of fences, and 1 or 2 barricades were placed at several entrances and exits to prevent entry and exit. There were hundreds of people wandering around. After Qin Yu's careful observation, the 100 archers should be inside the deer park. The range of the hunting bow would not exceed 50 meters at most, so there was no need to worry at all. There were also 100 wooden spearmen scattered around the archers, who should be responsible for protecting the safety of the long-range soldiers. The other 400 stone knife soldiers were divided into 8 square formations and wandered in batches at the 4 entrances and exits of the deer park. There were 2 stone knife soldiers patrolling in a cross pattern at each entrance and exit. Although the enemy's army was far behind Qin Yu still did not intend to rush in directly. Why would he rush in if he could reduce the losses? After gathering several generals under his command, Qin Yu began to assign combat tasks. Zhu is responsible for leading the archer team to approach 100 meters and get rid of the archers in the enemy's garden first. Ji Wu is responsible for covering the slingers to approach a 50-meter position with the Imperial Guards and resisting the damage of the enemy's archers. Your wolf cavalry is responsible for getting rid of the stone knife soldiers rushing in from the front, and Zhu Xiang, you are responsible for getting rid of the stone knife soldiers coming from the side with 200 spearmen. If everything goes well, we will work together to kill into the deer garden after all the enemies on the periphery are solved. If the enemy's wooden spearmen rush out of the garden, then Ji Woo will lead the Imperial Guards to kill directly in, and listen to my orders at that time. Yes. Everyone responded in unison. Qin Yu nodded and shouted loudly, action. With Qin Yu's order, each team started to move. Qin Yu drew out the fine iron sword from his waist and gradually approached with the team of the Imperial Guards. Ang, a heavy and powerful horn sounded from the defending team. The attacking enemy attracted their attention. The archers of the ZHU arrived at the target position first, and then everyone began to draw their bows and arrows. The surging arrows turned into dense raindrops and whistled towards the enemy. The archers in the garden wanted to fight back, but found that their own bows could not even shoot at the toes of the enemy, and the arrows fell 50 meters away. However, the enemy's arrows were accurate and came at them. With screams of pain, blood flowed out of the wounds, and teams of archers fell to the ground with arrows in their hands. Two teams of 50 stone knife soldiers gathered quickly around the main gate of the deer park, and the general of the defending army shouted, "Enemy attack! Enemy attack!" He looked different from the other soldiers. The others were wearing animal skins and holding a thin stone knife in their hands, but this general of the defending army was wearing leather armor and holding a bone knife in his hand. He was commanding his troops to resist the incoming enemy. As the 100 archers, led by ZHU, fired 3 or 4 rounds of volleys at the enemies in the park, the 100 hunting archers were almost completely wiped out. At this time, the general of the defending army had also gathered a 100-man stone knife team to kill the archers. A woo, the rapid and powerful wolf cavalry suddenly rushed towards the battlefield from the left. Ji held a fine iron horse lance and lay on the back of the black wolf. The wolf cavalry behind him picked up bows and arrows from behind and shot at the rushing enemies. After 2 rounds of arrows, nearly half of the 100 stone sword soldiers were killed, and the distance between the two sides was close to 50 meters. Ji shouted, "Change swords." Swish. 50 wolf riders put away their bows and arrows, then picked up their swords and shields, and followed Ji to kill the enemy phalanx. The strong murderous intent almost gathered into a substance and condensed above the wolf riders and enveloped the enemy. The running of the wolves rolled up waves of dust and mist. The gravel was constantly jumping. The wild grass was trembling and lying, and even the scorching sun in the sky seemed to hide in the clouds in fear. The terrifying momentum swept over. Ji and his 50 wolf riders were like a sharp blade stabbing into a piece of tofu, and it was crushed to pieces in an instant. Puff, the huge horse lance pierced through the chest of a stone sword soldier, and then pulled it out with force, drawing a bloody arc in the air. The wolf cavalry team held sharp bone scimitars and danced wildly between the enemy's necks. The blood seemed to be interwoven in the air to form a blood net. Obviously, this was a crushing battle without any suspense. After Ji used his horse lance to behead the head of the defending general, the battle in front of the garden gate was marked to be over. The catapult team in the rear had slowly moved to a position of 50 meters under the cover of the Imperial Guards. As the creaking sound of movement stopped, the captain of the slingers gave an order. Release. The soldiers in the rear immediately chopped at the fixed rope with a sharp axe. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. One after another, giant stone bombs hit the direction of the deer garden. With a loud clang, the defense facilities in front of the deer garden were shattered like tofu. 3 or 5 giant stone bombs smashed into the wooden spearmen behind the building. For a while, screams came one after another, and broken limbs and arms were flying all over the sky. The blood mist turned into blood filled the air. Qin Yu's eyes were sharp, and he caught the opportunity to fight. He immediately ordered loudly, the archers suppress the enemies on the side, and the spearmen set up a spear formation. The wolf riders attack from behind, and the guards follow me to charge. Kill. Kill. The earth-shaking screams turned into a tide of anger and rushed towards the enemies in the garden. Ji, Zhu Xiang and ZHU began to make dumplings for the remaining enemies outside the garden. Facing a war with the same number of people, the army of the dragon tribe easily crushed a primitive team with a very obvious advantage. P.S. You can keep the book for a few days and follow it. If you keep it for too long, it will really kill you. Please subscribe quickly. Don't keep the book. Please subscribe. Chapter 113. Rain of Fire and Flowing Arrows. At this time, the bearded man held a fine iron axe like a killing god on the battlefield. Under the premise of his own great strength, He also wielded a weapon with great lethality. Often when the axe swept forward, a row of heads rolled down from the enemy's neck, blood splattered, and the surrounding soldiers trembled with fear. A large axe turned into a gyro machine that harvested lives, spinning wildly in the enemy's stone knife soldiers' square formation. The spearmen in the back were also slaughtering wantonly, constantly compressing the enemy's living space. At this time, Ji also led the wolf cavalry team to go around the enemy and kill them, and the scimitars picked up bright blood flowers. The enemy's morale had collapsed, and they had no intention of resisting at all. The situation gradually turned into a one-sided massacre. After a long time, this war without suspense ended. Congratulations on winning a war and getting a primary win, a gold coin x1, please. Qin Yu breathed a sigh of relief. Although the strength of the defenders was weak, the number was there after all. Maybe because of the system, even if the morale of the defenders was low, they would not collapse. At most, they would be much less willing to resist and let themselves be slaughtered. After a long time, the bodies of the defenders on the ground around them gradually turned into light spots and dissipated in this space. Qin Yu couldn't help but look at the doubts. Is it possible that these defenders are not real people, but fabricated by the system? Qin Yu shook his head and stopped thinking about it. It was time to collect resources and go back. Qin Yu asked the team to take a short break while counting the losses. Chief Ji Wu came over and bowed, saying, "There are about 40 wounded soldiers in the army. Most of them are slightly injured, and there are no deaths." Qin Yu nodded. It can't be said that it is difficult for a weapon like a stone knife to cause fatal damage to the elite army of the dragon tribe. It can only be said that it depends on luck. After resting for a while, Qin Yu began to order to lead the archers to hunt the horned deer in the deer park. Because the deer park was closed, it was very easy to hunt. Hundreds of archers used this group of horned deer as live targets. With the cries of deer, large groups of horned deer fell to the ground. In order to save time, Qin Yu looked at Ji and said, "Let the wolf riders also shoot the horned deer to speed up the hunting." Ji nodded and turned to order the wolf riders to follow the archers to hunt together. Although the data on the map showed more than 1,500 horned deer, in fact, there were more than 1,800. According to the calculation that a deer can produce 8 animal tendons, these more than 1,800 deer can produce more than 14,000 animal tendons. In the bow and arrow workshop, only one animal tendon is needed to make a single wooden bow, which means that these animal tendons are enough to make more than 10,000 single wooden bows. After all, there is no loss when building and producing items, and the resources that can be produced from a deer are not just animal tendons. In addition to animal tendons, there are also velvet antlers, antler glue, antler cream, deer blood, deer brain, deer tail, deer kidney, deer meat, deer bones, deer teeth, deer marrow, etc. These are not only edible, but also have medicinal value. Among them, deer antlers are one of the medicinal materials needed in the bodybuilding prescription. The hunting time has reached nearly 2 hours. The whole deer park is full of the corpses of horned deer. Qin Yu began to order the team to pile up the corpses of deer together, which took nearly an hour. After everything was ready, Qin Yu's consciousness moved and chose to summon the space gate. The rich space atmosphere gathered around, and then a 3-meter wide and 3-meter high azure space gate appeared in front of everyone. "Throw all the prey into the door." Qin Yu looked at the space gate that had appeared and immediately ordered everyone. A group of soldiers began to lift the deer and slowly threw it into the door in groups of 3 or 2. Copy resources. Most of the horned deer in the deer park are in adult status and are very fat. There are almost no ones less than 700 kilograms, and many even exceed 1,000 kilograms. Even if some messy things are removed in the end, just looking at the net weight of pure venison, 1,800 horned deer can bring Qin Yu about 1 million kilograms of meat. Fortunately, it is winter and can be stored for a while. If it is summer, it will rot in a few days. Even if the population of the 3 cities of the dragon tribe is more than 10,000 people, it will take at least 3 months to consume them all. After more than half an hour, the bodies of more than 1,000 deer were thrown into the other side of the space gate. "Go back," Qin Yu ordered softly, then stood up and walked into the space gate. As Qin Yu left, the remaining people began to line up in an orderly queue and jumped into the door one after another. As the last soldier walked in, the space gate disappeared in an instant. And on the Warzone map, the Deer Park copy 5 stars away from Qin Yu civilization also disappeared after Qin Yu led the team back. A new resource copy was refreshed again after a long time at a location more than 10 stars away. Obviously, resource copies are renewable resources and are one-time resources. After they are collected, they will disappear from the map, but other copy resources will be randomly regenerated. In a trance, Qin Yu felt that his mind was spinning, and then he opened his eyes again and found himself back in the meeting hall. The rest of the generals and soldiers also returned to their original positions. ZHU and the 20 members of the Imperial Guards also returned to the Witch Hall. ZHU's talent can hear very far, so Qin Yu sent him to monitor. Shaking his head, Qin Yu stood up and walked out. He ordered the guards to gather a team to move the 5 or 6 mountains of venison piled outside into the cellar for storing meat. It is estimated that it is difficult to fill the cellar with more than 1 million kilograms of venison. After processing and dividing these deer, transport 3,000 kilograms to the North City to feed the wolves, leave 8,000 kilograms to reward the tribesmen, store the rest, send the tendons to the bow and arrow workshop, and store the rest of the materials in categories. Qin Yu carefully instructed one by one. The people on the side nodded repeatedly to show that they understood. Qin Yu stopped talking and turned to leave. After returning to the meeting hall, Qin Yu slowly sat on the main seat. A golden light flashed in his hand, and then the whole person appeared in the space of the civilization Qianqi after a trance. Standing on the lush cliff bank, he threw the newly acquired primary winner gold coin in his hand hard. After a splash of water, a blue light suddenly flashed from the golden pool and rushed into the sky and finally appeared in front of Qin Yu. You consume a primary winner gold coin and get the prop card Flame Rain Flowing Arrow X1, blue quality, Flame Rain Flowing Arrow. After use, the attack of your long-range troops will be accompanied by fireworks. Once the place touched by the fireworks is extremely difficult to extinguish. It has a terrifying high temperature. The prop lasts for half an hour. After half an hour, the effect disappears, and the fireworks disappear. Right square bracket. Chapter 114 Extraordinary Tribe. Thousands of people live in a simple wooden village of about 10,000 square meters. This is the intersection of the eastern and central parts of the grassland, and it is also the territory of the Futeng tribe. But at this time, the camp is in a panic, and countless people are hurriedly shuttling between tents, carrying and sorting various supplies. At this time, 2 old men and the tribe leader's tent are having a heated discussion. Woo, you take the tribe members and go east. I will lead the tribe's warriors to buy time for you. The tribe leader of the Futeng tribe sighed. The witch of the Futeng tribe was an old man with wrinkles on his face. He hunched over and shook his head. You can't stop them for long. Let me do it. You take the people away. The chief of the Futeng tribe persuaded earnestly, Witch, if the Futeng tribe is without you, the fire can't be ignited, and how can the tribe survive? My disciple Yin will be the next witch of the Futeng tribe. He is fully capable of doing it. You take the people away. Go east. The farther away from here, the better. This is my last will as a witch. The chief of the Futeng tribe was stunned for a long time, then sighed deeply, and finally left slowly. Not long after, the migration team of the Futeng tribe reached more than 800 people, and walked all the way to the east. And only the old witch of the Futeng tribe and the totem warriors of up to 300 were left in the tribe. Some of them held bone swords, some held stone knives, some held stone spears, and there were also some wooden weapons. They were all excellent warriors with strong bodies, and the bulging muscle lines revealed their domineering power. They stood in a neat line and silently surrounded the witch, waiting for the enemies from the west. After a long time, the witch opened his eyes, stared at the west with sharp eyes, and slowly uttered a sentence. They are coming. Many totem warriors stood up and came to the front of the camp, looking to the west. Suddenly, a group of dense black shadows rushed out from the distance on the endless grassland, rushing towards them at a terrifying speed. Dung, 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 dung. The strange and regular sound of drums resounded in the distance. Ah, 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 ah. As the dense shadows gradually approached, a vague roar came from their mouths. Looking at the number of at least thousands of people, although they were in human form, they had already lost consciousness. The pale face had no blood color, waving his arms, twisting his body, and rushing towards the camp of the Futeng tribe without fear. There were only 2 words left in their minds. Eat people. The witch of the Futeng tribe slowly stood up and answered everyone's questions. The strange drum sound continued to sound. Seeing that those strange figures were about to pounce on him, the witch of the Futeng tribe suddenly raised his hands and a suffocating momentum rushed over. The howling wind blew to the west, causing the many white-faced monsters who were running wildly to slow down. The dark clouds in the sky continued to gather, covering the sky, and the surroundings began to become grey and dark. The green rain poured down from the clouds. Boom. Boom. Everyone's footsteps were disordered, and they felt the vibration of the surrounding ground. Looking forward again, the scene instantly became shocking. I saw that the ground facing the west suddenly bulged up, and countless thick vines wrapped in thorns rose high from the broken ground, and then swept towards the many white shadows in front. Hundreds of thorny vines rushed towards the enemy with a majestic momentum, and tied them up tightly, and then twisted and whipped them hard. Blood seeped out from the gaps in the tightly bound vines, and large pieces of broken limbs were blown away and scattered all over the ground. The surrounding ground was covered with dust from the countless thick vines. Puff! The witch of the Futeng tribe suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. The excessive use of the fire law had overdrawn his life. At this time, he was just a broken body, like a candle in a strong wind, which could go out at any time. After killing nearly 2,000 enemies, the hundreds of vines surging on the ground in front of him seemed to wilt and shrank back to the ground, and the witch of the Futeng tribe fell down and slowly lost his breath. Dung. 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 The strange drum sounded again, and the enemies seemed to be endless. After more than 2,000 people died, dense white-faced monsters emerged again. Kill. Kill. The 300 totem warriors in the Futeng tribe burst into earth-shaking shouts of killing after the witch died, and rushed towards the enemy group without fear. Less than 100 meters away, the two sides soon collided. The white-faced monster's attack method was like that of a wild beast, with sharp fingers grabbing the opponent's skin and sharp teeth biting the enemy's neck. However, something unexpected happened. The skin color of the 300 Futeng tribe warriors suddenly turned into the appearance of wood trunks, and the hardness was the same as wood. The sharp teeth of the monster seemed to bite on the wood, but it took a long time to bite into it, and then the opponent chopped off its head with the stone knife in its hand. But although the 300 totem warriors had strange totem abilities, they could not withstand the huge number of enemies. Many monsters surrounded 1 in 10, hugged it tightly, and then pulled each limb hard. The warriors of the Futeng tribe screamed in pain. Arms, legs, even heads, eyeballs, were dug out and pulled out. When the effect of the ability dissipated, the fate of this group of warriors was destined to be tragic. After a long time, the surroundings gradually calmed down, and only broken bones were left on the original ground. The people of this tribe went east. A leader of the bone erosion tribe said slowly. After hearing this, the witch next to him slowly raised his right hand and pointed to the east. According to the guidance of the totem, let all the white-faced people go east, where new nutrients will appear. The old and hoarse voice sounded as harsh as a saw. Dung. Dung. The leader of the bone erosion tribe struck the leather drum, and the quiet white-faced people around him suddenly became agitated, with only the whites of their eyes turning wildly in their eye sockets, and then running to the east. Dragon City, Witch Hall. It's time to leave, Yi said in a voice that only the two of them could hear. After hearing this, the thin man next to him sighed and said, after leaving, where will we go? Yi shook his head. The inheritance of the preservation god is important. As for which tribe to go to, isn't it the same? Let's go. We will soon be trapped in danger and fall into a dead end. Let's go north. North? That's not a good place either. Why not go through Dangshan to find a new tribe? The thin man suggested. It's not that easy. Let's leave first. Yi wrapped his fur coat around him, then walked out of the witch hall with the thin man beside him. Chapter 115 5-star character. Get out of the way. Yi frowned as he looked at the dozen law enforcement officers blocking the road ahead. Great Wizard, you are suspected of spreading rumors and misleading the public, violating civil law number 9. Come with us to the law hall. An angry look emerged on Yi's face. I'm the great wizard of the witch hall. How can you frame me for no reason? Of course someone reported it. The law enforcement team will not arrest people for no reason. Kishi walked over silently from the back, holding the bone knife at his waist with a vigilant look in his eyes. You are just using the law to suppress others, but in fact you want to take revenge. I can't stand it. Yi shouted angrily, and then a burst of blood appeared on his hands. 3 giant wolves suddenly jumped out from the back of the witch hall. Their eyes turned into a terrifying red, staring fiercely at Kishi and others. I'll say it again. Get out of the way. Great wizard. We don't meet each other on weekdays. How could there be any hatred? Stop trying to confuse the people. Captain Zua, come out and help. Kishi shouted loudly, and Zua rushed over from the back with his men. 20 well-equipped guards surrounded Yi and his 3 wolves, with their sharp blades erected. Yi saw that even the guards had joined in and immediately realized that things were not simple. Someone really informed? Who? Jiangrong. Jiangrong, the young wizard genius of the witch hall. He had calculated that Long Cheng would be doomed to a catastrophe, and he couldn't bear to see his talent buried like this. But who knew that he would betray me? Yi's face flushed with anger, but he couldn't care less at this time. Break through the crowd. You and I will rush out of the city. Yi and another thin wizard. A burst of blood mist suddenly burst out of their bodies, and their muscles bulged obviously, and even their height grew a lot. The 3 giant wolves around them immediately pounced on them and tangled with the guards. Yi rushed over and picked up a thick wooden stick and smashed it at several law enforcement team members. Several people only felt a huge force coming, and they flew 3 or 5 meters away, fell hard on the ground and spit out a mouthful of blood. 20 guards fought against 3 giant wolves, but had a slight advantage. The sharp bone knife could easily leave wounds on the giant wolf, and blood gradually seeped out. Yi and the thin wizard suddenly seized the opportunity and jumped onto the giant wolf, then broke through the crowd and ran towards the north city. A woo, a series of rapid and powerful wolf howls sounded from the surroundings, but at this time, Ji brought 50 wolf riders to the scene and surrounded the 2. Yi's heart skipped a beat. The wolf riders have arrived. Then, Yi. A cold voice suddenly fell into Yi's ears. Yi looked over and saw Qin Yu jumping down from a carriage. I remember you were a witch from the Earth tribe. The dragon tribe is now nearly 10 times stronger than the Earth tribe. You are now a great witch in the witch hall. I have treated you well, right? Why did you betray me? Qin Yu asked coldly. Yi knew that he could not leave, so he jumped down from the giant wolf and said, a disaster without hope is coming. Escape from the east. This is the will of the god of Gua. The disaster comes from the west? Qin Yu asked with narrowed eyes. Yi was obviously stunned. How do you know? Qin Yu shook his head. It seems that the disaster Yi was talking about was the bone erosion tribe in the west. I have a plan for the west. There is no need to panic. As for the 2 of you, let's decide your fate according to the law. Kishi, tell me how to deal with them. Qin Yu asked calmly. According to civil law 2, 3, 6, 8, and 9. You 2 are suspected of disturbing the order of the city, hurting others without reason, using your power to privately control the Black Wolf, not reporting it, and spreading rumors. If the circumstances are serious, you should be hanged. After Kishi finished speaking, he looked at Qin Yu, and when the other nodded, he continued, immediately arrest and execute. If there is resistance, kill without mercy. Kishi gave an order, and the surrounding law enforcement teams surrounded them, but Yi and the thin man would not give up so easily. The 2 of them flashed red light, and wanted to resist to the death. Seeing this, Ji directly ordered arrows to shoot. 50 wolf riders drew their bows and arrows, and the sharp arrows turned into a rain of arrows and smashed over. Although the 2 knew some witchcraft, they were mortal bodies after all, and could not stop the sharp arrows. In the end, they were pierced through the body by several arrows, and all of them fell in a pool of blood, including the 3 black wolves. After the incident, Qin Yu took a carriage back to the meeting hall. The death of the 2 was purely their own fault. Even if Qin Yu felt sorry for the loss of talents, Qin Yu chose to watch coldly in front of the law. He would not allow such a person who betrayed the tribe to live, and would never allow anyone to lead such a trend. The tribe has raised you for so long, and you run away when you are in trouble? You don't even tell the tribe about the possible dangers, but only think about running away by yourself, and even run away in a gang. It's really hateful. Now that the position of the Great Wizard of the Witch Hall is vacant, Qin Yu thought about it and asked someone to call Jiangrong over. After a long time, Jiangrong walked into the meeting hall under the guidance of the guards. Qin Yu silently opened his attribute panel. Name, Jiangrong. Gender, male. Age, 18. Force, Constitution, Agility, Intelligence, Command, Combat Talent, Long-Range Weapons, Talent, Spiritual Master, B-Class Superior, Effect, Born with Energy 5 to 10 times higher than that of ordinary people, a genius in cultivating the mystical side. Satiation, 65. Loyalty, 89. What the hell? 5-star intelligence? Qin Yu was stunned, and his heart was shocked. The number of people he saw in the entire Dragon City was at least 1,800, if not 2,000. Although the total number was far from the total, it could still show the ridiculous proportion of people with high attributes. Although he thought that Jiangrong's attributes might be high, he really didn't expect it to reach 5 stars. At present, the only 5-star in the Dragon tribe was Ji, who had a 5-star force. After closing the panel, Qin Yu looked at Jiangrong and asked calmly, "Which tribe are you originally from?" Jiangrong was obviously a little nervous at this time. He was silent for a moment before replying, "Chief, I was originally from the Teng tribe." Qin Yu nodded. The Teng tribe should have been a few months ago, when they joined forces with the Black Wolf tribe, to attack the Dragon tribe. Have you ever thought about re-establishing the Teng tribe, or avenging the tribe members? Qin Yu asked with a smile. The calm tone frightened Jiangrong, and he quickly knelt down and said, "Jiangrong, dare not. The Dragon tribe saved my sister and me. In the Teng tribe, we didn't get much to eat, but here we can eat enough every day." So Jiangrong and his sister like the Dragon tribe from the bottom of their hearts, and are happy and fortunate to be able to join the Dragon tribe. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 116, Tribal Development. Which of the 3 witchcrafts in the Witch Hall, Turtle Treasure Guaziangshu, Blood Contract Wolf Chapter, and Burning Bloodshoe, have you learned? Qin Yu asked softly, while sitting on the animal skin mat. Patriarch, except for Turtle Treasure Guaziangshu, I have mastered the other 2. Jiangrong replied respectfully. Oh. Qin Yu was surprised and said, "It seems that you are really talented in witchcraft. In that case, the position of the Witch Hall's Great Wizard will be held by you." Qin Yu said lightly. "Ah." Jiangrong was stunned, and said in surprise, "Chief, am I not suitable enough?" Qin Yu smiled and said, "Since I chose you, I naturally value your ability, but if you are afraid, it would be a bit contemptuous of me." "No." Jiangrong said anxiously, "I will definitely live up to the chief's expectations." Qin Yu nodded, as if he remembered something, and suddenly asked, "Can the Blood Covenant technique drive black wolves? Or can it contract multiple black wolves?" Jiangrong responded slowly, to reply to the chief, "Generally speaking, the spiritual power of a witch is higher than that of an ordinary person, so he can contract multiple black wolves at the same time, and only a witch can deepen his understanding of the Blood Covenant, so as to achieve the effect of driving multiple black wolves." Qin Yu nodded slightly. "You go to the Elder Sea, and ask him to assist you in selecting 30 tribesmen under the age of 20 from the tribe, to join the Witch Hall, mainly to learn the 2 witchcrafts of Blood Covenant and Burning Blood." "I understand." Jiangrong bowed and replied respectfully. Qin Yu nodded and waved his hand outside, indicating that Jiangrong could leave, if there was nothing else. "I'll take my leave." Jiangrong responded respectfully, and left the meeting hall. Just after stepping out of the threshold of the meeting hall, Jiangrong's originally tense face could no longer be tensed, and turned into a look of ecstasy, excited and unable to hold back silent laughter. Seeing someone looking at him, he quickly tensed his expression and left quickly. After Jiangrong left, Qin Yu felt relieved. Yi's death was not necessarily a bad thing. He felt that this would be more conducive to his complete control of the Witch Hall. After all, extraordinary power has many uncertainties, but now that the old wizard has died after teaching witchcraft, Qin Yu will be easier to control after the infusion of fresh power. Now he also has the talent of discerning people, and can check their loyalty, so the various departments in the dragon tribe are more assured than before. After a long time, Qin Yu thought of the bone erosion tribe in the west, so he asked people to go to Coal City, Panshan City and Xianghu City in the East Mountain, to mobilize their respective archer teams back. After Qin Yu finished speaking, the matter was expedited, and the 3 teams responsible for reporting immediately drove out of the east gate in carriages. Time passed like a white horse passing by, and half a month passed unknowingly. During this period, Qin Yu sent people to guard against the changes in the west, and occasionally went to the Four Seasons Fairy Valley to check the progress of farming. The new soldiers were training non-stop. G would go out to sweep every 2 days, and each time he brought back at least 1,000 people. At present, the 3 cities have a total of more than 15,000 people, of which Panshan City has a population of up to 1,500, and Coal City has a population of more than 1,500, the same as Panshan City. The Four Seasons Fairy Valley currently has more than 3,000 people. In addition to the young and strong population responsible for farming, Qin Yu sent some old people and children there. The warm climate there is more suitable for them to live, and it is also conducive to the healthy growth of tribal children. The number of people in Langcheng is the largest, with more than 9,000 people. This is just the number of ordinary tribesmen, and the number of militia, law enforcement, witch temple, and various armies has not been counted. The current army of the 3 cities has a total of 1,000 archers, including 400 new recruits, but they are also recruited from the militia training camp. After simple training, they can pull the bow to the state of full moon. Accuracy requires long-term training. In addition to the 1,000 archers, the shield spearmen have been supplemented to 500 people, which is considered the main defensive force in the tribe. The number of spearmen is the largest in the tribe, with 1,500 people. Qin Yu plans to expand it to 2,000 in the future. Jiangli shield axe soldiers are no longer restricted after Qin Yu draws the drawings of the animal bone axe from the bone soldier forging workshop. The number of shield axe soldiers has also increased to 300 in the later period. The new recruits are also sent there, after spending money in the militia training camp, and undergoing simple training. As for the daily training in the future, Jiangli is responsible for it himself. Qin Yu gave him the best soldiers and weapons and equipment. G's blood-packed wolf riders have added 50 soldiers, reaching 100 cavalrymen, and are currently implementing a training method of old and new. Xiao's scout force remains unchanged, still 100 people. The number of slingers has reached more than 250 people, and the number of catapults is more than 30. It is worth mentioning that the number of guards has increased sharply, increasing to 500 people. With the militia training camp, Qin Yu's idea of bringing troops has been truly realized. After a short training period, they can become a combat-ready soldier, and after simple training, they can traverse the primitive battlefield. As for the goal of being more elite, they need to experience the blood-like tempering on the battlefield. In addition to the 500 guards, there are also 500 cavalrymen of Yuming, and now the training will be completed soon. Qin Yu has only recently discovered the horror of the 10x training game card. It is really a new look after 3 days of separation. 1 month of training is equivalent to almost a year. After the militia training camp was crypt in gold, the higher tribute soldiers were now not only excellent in riding skills, but also in horseback archery, which could reach 1 in 3 shots, which was considered elite. In addition to these, there were also spear battles on horseback, and the various battle formations and tactics of the cavalry had been completely consolidated. The only drawback was that they had not been on the battlefield and had not seen blood. But Qin Yu waited and saw. At present, in addition to the military law that had been promulgated, each unit had also formulated a unified organization. 5 people formed a squad, with a squad leader. 10 people formed a platoon, with a platoon leader. 50 people formed a garrison, with a garrison leader. 100 people formed a city, with a city head. 500 people formed a captain, and 1,000 people formed a school lieutenant. As for the higher level organization, Qin Yu had not yet implemented it, because the largest unit at present was only 1,500 spearmen, and they would be dispersed. Therefore, although the number of troops above 1,000 had been thought of long ago, Qin Yu felt that it was not necessary to publish it for the time being. The reform of the army has just begun, and it is still quite scattered. In ancient times, there were many mixed camps in the army, and they could not be divided according to the types of arms. The total number of the Dragon Tribe's troops currently added up to about 4,750 people. Chapter 117 Invitation from the Top 5. A very scary number. This is the benefit of developing in the grassland. Although it is difficult at the beginning, once you stick to it, you can easily obtain population resources and warhorse resources in the later stage. Fighting to support fighting is the way to play in the grassland terrain. After all, the resources are all there. If you have the strength, you can take them. Of course, there are disadvantages, but for Qin Yu, the advantages far outweigh the disadvantages. In addition to the army of more than 4,700 people, there are also more than 500 militias and more than 300 law enforcement teams. At present, the total population of the Dragon Tribe has exceeded 20,000. Qin Yu silently opened the Warzone rankings and took a look. No 482. Qin Yu civilization / rank. Bronze beginning / number of games. 2 / win rate. 100% / civilization combat power. 69,350 / Lord of Civilization. Qin Yu. His ranking has reached the 482nd position in the 50th Warzone. If only ranked by combat power, Qin Yu can rank in the 70th place. The reason why others usually restrict the promotion of rank is that the rank combat power does not meet the requirements, but Qin Yu's combat power increases very quickly, and his rank points are currently only a pitiful 160. But it is normal. Others may only get a treasure chest once a month, but Qin Yu is different. As long as he fights a battle, he can get rewards regardless of whether he wins or loses. This is the main reason why he can develop from the grassland and his combat power soars. Of course, people who can't help up can't grasp the best opportunities, and smart people can take advantage of the situation and soar to thousands of miles like a rock with wings spread. After closing the rankings, Qin Yu quietly opened the Warzone channel and peeked at the screen for a while to see if he could get some useful information from it. Chat channel of the 50th Warzone. 1769 people. Myth Alliance / Wang Yu. I heard that the people of Warrior Glory attacked Sister Lina's secret realm a few days ago. Is there any follow up? Myth Alliance / Tang Zuan. I want to see the sequel +1. Holy Hall / Wusheng. I want to see the sequel +1. Gathering of Heroes / Zuyun. Too brave. Dare to mess with the big sister of our District 50. Violet / Guo Kanming. The sequel is here. A total of 10 players participated in that group of devils, with a total strength of 5,000. They were defeated by 2 rounds of charges by the 1,000-man knights, stationed in the secret realm by our alliance leader. It's so funny. Now we, Violet, are preparing to counterattack and teach the people of Warrior Glory a lesson. Sword Domain / Li Yunfui. 666,666 Holy Hall / Song Liang. The newcomer looks familiar. Joining the Holy Hall will bring you a bright future. Join the alliance to trade ironware at a low price, and there are many policies and benefits to support newcomers. Snake Island / Wushan. 6666. Bronze is also considered ironware. Holy Hall / Song Liang. Fuck you. You are here to ruin my platform, right? Don't let me catch your coordinates. Puff. Qin Yu couldn't help laughing at the bickering of a group of sand sculpture players in the Warzone. After watching for a while, he closed the Warzone channel and looked at the friend channel. At this time, there were more than 30 reminders to apply for adding friends in the channel. He silently clicked on it and took a look. Among them, 3 big guys added him as his friends. They were Yelena from the 2nd ranked Knight Civilization, who was the one mentioned in the Warzone channel, just now that the 1,000-man Knight group broke through the enemy's 5,000 troops. The other was Zhao Xiaowu from the 3rd ranked Iron Blood Civilization. It seemed that he was a soldier and was particularly inclined towards the Chinese player forces. The last one is quite special, the 5th ranked Martial Arts Civilization Wen Zhao. The key is that he has no alliance to add him. Obviously, they don't want to invite him to join the alliance. What could it be? Qin Yu thought for a long time, but he had no clue. After silently agreeing to the friends of several big guys one by one, he clicked on the friends who did not have an alliance and the friends with higher combat power in the remaining friend applications. As for the rest, he pretended not to see it, neither refusing nor agreeing. Ding, there was a sound on the light screen suddenly. He clicked it and saw that it was a message from the fifth big guy Wenzhao, who had just added a friend. A message just after adding? So idle? Qin Yu opened the chat channel with a strange look on his face. Wenzhao, fuck, brother, your combat power has increased so fast? Last month I saw it was more than 30,000 and now it has reached 70,000? Wenzhao, awesome, you are worthy of being the man I like. Qin Yu, big brother, let's talk. I declined. Qin Yu stared at the chat channel with a strange look on his face and agreed to the friend application with some regret. As the light curtain beeped twice again, Qin Yu leaned over to look. Wenzhao, don't be afraid, brother. You can see that I haven't joined any alliance. I mainly want to establish an alliance of my own. Wenzhao, the positions of the alliances in the 50 war zones are extremely complicated. Joining one of them is equivalent to standing on that side. As long as you join, you can expect someone to come to your door the next day. It's very complicated. Qin Yu, do you mean you want me to join the alliance you are about to establish? Wenzhao, well, it's only after seeing you that I have become more interested. Originally, even if I established an alliance by myself, my say in the war zone would not be too important. Wenzhao, but it's different with you. You have high potential. If I'm not mistaken, your world must have an extraordinary system. Qin Yu, but I don't have a reason to join. Wenzhao, with your potential, you will surpass me sooner or later, so I plan to let you be the leader, and I'll be the deputy leader. How about it? Are you tempted? There will be no conflict of interest between us in establishing a new alliance, and we can support each other's development. Wenzhao, to show my sincerity, I invite you to come and see my civilization. Ding, system prompt. Your friend Wenzhao has sent you a civilization invitation. Martial arts civilization invitation. By default, you will be teleported to the other party's civilization. You will not be harmed in the other party's civilization with the invitation, and you can leave instantly at any time and anywhere. The ordinary invitation can stay for 3 days. It is a one-time item. Qin Yu looked at the transparent crystal letter that suddenly appeared in his hand, with the 3 words invitation written on it. Do you want to take a look? It is a chance to learn about the civilization of other players. Qin Yu's mind turned, and after thinking for a moment, he happily decided. After Qin Yu used it by default, the invitation letter turned into a stream of light and fell to the ground, and then a small space door opened instantly. Qin Yu thought about it and notified the guards before walking into the door. As Qin Yu stepped into it, the space door dissipated in the blink of an eye. In a trance, the fatal dizziness came again, and after a long time, Qin Yu felt that his consciousness was slowly waking up. He slightly opened his eyes to observe the surroundings. This is a giant stone palace. The space inside the palace is extremely spacious. The overall style is somewhat wild, with animal skin carpets, bronze candlesticks, stone sculptures of wild beasts, and an armored soldier standing every few meters around. Chapter 118 Martial Arts Civilization. Brother Qin Yu. A surprised shout came from a high place. Qin Yu looked over and saw a huge stone seat about 20 meters in front of him, covered with thick animal skins. A tall and strong man stood up from the stone seat and walked towards Qin Yu excitedly. The man looked strong and powerful, and he seemed to have an iron sword similar to that of the Song dynasty on his waist. His face was firm, his eyes were bright, and his big ears were particularly conspicuous. He was wearing an exquisite fur coat, revealing his thick arms full of muscular lines. Haha, brother Wenzhao. Qin Yu greeted politely. Wenzhao smiled and put his hands on his waist and said, I'm 29 this year, and you look only in your early 20s. It is not too much to call me brother. Let's go, I'll take you out to sea. Qin Yu nodded and followed him out of the stone hall silently. Wenzhao said as he walked, you should know about the special technology tree, right? Yes. Qin Yu nodded slightly. After hearing this, Wenzhao continued, my civilization was lucky enough to get a martial arts technology tree from a treasure chest, so it became one of the 5 silver players in the entire region. Oh. Qin Yu was surprised. A bronze treasure chest can get a technology tree. Does a special technology tree increase combat power a lot? Well, the higher the rank of the treasure chest, the higher the probability of getting a special technology tree, but special technology trees generally only increase the speed of civilization development. However, a civilization with a special technology tree must have extraordinary soldiers. Wenzhao slowly narrated. After the two walked out of the stone hall, they were still surrounded by countless tall stone walls, each of which was more than 1 meter thick, and was built like a maze. Seeing Qin Yu's puzzled expression, Wenzhao couldn't help but smile and explain, this stone forest city is the main city of my civilization, covering an area of about 2 square kilometers. Although it looks like a maze, it is actually regular. Qin Yu was stunned. What's the point of this? This stone forest city has no gates, which means that, if a player invades, he can attack directly. But, Wenzhao changed his tone, my civilization has more advantages in close combat, and fighting in narrow places, so I abandoned defense and let the enemy in to kill directly. This stone city is full of mysteries and small formations, and bows and catapults and even fire attacks are of little use. Players who want to attack me can only enter the city for close combat. It's really great. Qin Yu couldn't help but nod repeatedly. Once this method is used, even if I don't join any alliance, and have no alliance protection, the civilization can still stand firm. It is fundamentally the advantage of a special civilization. Wenzhao said with a proud look on his face. Qin Yu nodded and asked, what are your extraordinary soldiers? Wenzhao thought for a moment and said, there are many. Since I got the martial arts technology tree, I have used almost all my civilization points to unlock attributes. At present, civilization is mainly developing martial arts in 3 directions. External skills, which are physical training, light skills, which are flying over eaves and walls or body movements, and martial arts formations are about the formations of warriors cooperating with each other to kill the enemy. Although internal skills and martial arts have been studied, the progress is not high. External skills can currently achieve the effect of being invulnerable to swords and guns. Qin Yu was stunned and said in surprise, it can actually reach the point of being invulnerable to swords and guns? That can really be regarded as an extraordinary soldier. At least it can completely defeat most of the player civilizations in the 50 war zones. Wenzhao nodded and said, that's right, let me show you 2 more soldiers. After Wenzhao finished speaking, he took Qin Yu to wander around in the stone wall maze and finally came to another stone hall. When Qin Yu walked into the door of the hall, he heard a sound of hey, ha inside. There are about 300 people in this stone hall. They all have invulnerable bodies and are extremely strong. They can lift a 300 Jin stone lock with one hand. During the siege, they are responsible for pushing the special battering ram. Bows and arrows, and rolling logs and boulders have little effect on them. When they approach the city gate, to push the battering ram, the opponent's city gate can hardly withstand 10 hits. Qin Yu nodded with an envious look on his face. This kind of powerful army is really amazing. If you want to defend the city gate, if you attack Langcheng, what can you use to defend it? It seems that in addition to using props similar to fireworks and arrows, there are methods such as kerosene, or throwing red hot coal down is also a method. TSK, I'm really mean. Qin Yu complained about himself in his heart. Shaking his head, Qin Yu swept away the random thoughts and then looked into the hall. Hundreds of 1.9 meter tall men, all of them were tendon meat, 8-pack abs, and they were holding relatively heavy weapons. What double hammers, axes, giant swords, broadswords, iron rods, etc. It is estimated that they are very effective in battles such as siege and defense. After seeing this stone hall, Wenzhao took Qin Yu to another stone hall. There are 500 people here who are practicing flying over eaves and walls, and relatively light weapons, which are good for killing people. They can quietly climb the enemy's wall at night, seize the top of the wall, launch a night attack, or lurk in the city, to burn food and grass, poison, assassinate, etc. Qin Yu on the side was stunned. My goodness, Wenzhao played better than him. Suddenly, he had an epiphany that martial arts civilization can be like this. Qin Yu sighed and suppressed his envy, then asked, is martial arts civilization limited to these low-level martial arts? Wen Zhao turned his head in confusion and said, how is it possible? The martial arts technology tree is not unique, which means that other people may also be drawn, but the probability is not high. It is said that the big boss in a certain war zone has the same martial arts civilization, and his development level has reached the point of splitting mountains and rivers, and carrying mountains. Hiss. So exaggerated. Qin Yu said in a daze. Seeing Qin Yu's surprised expression, Wen Zhao felt very happy. He couldn't help but raise his chin and said proudly, yes, as long as you have a special technology tree, the world can still create extraordinary things, even if there is no extraordinary system. Qin Yu nodded and said, it's really amazing. How about it, buddy? I've been honest with you. Is it sincere enough? Have you thought about it, to create an alliance together? Wen Zhao turned his head and asked happily. Qin Yu was lost in thought. After a moment of silence, he responded, it's okay to form an alliance together, but I'm not strong enough at the moment. How about I wait until I advance to the silver rank? Qin Yu suggested waiting until he advances to the silver rank, because he considered that, if he was the leader, but not the strongest person in the alliance, then his prestige and control over his subordinates would definitely not be as good as that of the strongest person. Wen Zhao nodded and said, no problem. With your potential, it's estimated that it will take less than a year to advance to the silver rank. I've already waited so long, so it doesn't matter if I wait a little longer. Chapter 119 Totem was swallowed. After Wen Zhao's hospitality, Qin Yu rubbed his slightly bulging belly and stood up to leave. Qin Yu said goodbye to Wen Zhao and then stepped into the space door. In the meeting hall, as the space door appeared, Xiaoyu beside him showed a surprised expression. Chief. After Qin Yu stepped out, he saw Xiaoyu beside him exclaiming, what happened? Qin Yu was stunned and asked in confusion. A migrating team from the west appeared 100 meters outside the city, with a large number of people. Xiaoyu bowed and said, migration? If they go further east, they will enter the mountains and forests. Tell them to move to the north and south. Qin Yu frowned and said, Chief, they want to see you. Xiaoyu said slowly, see me? Qin Yu looked puzzled and said, what do they want to see me for? Forget it, let's go and take a look. Qin Yu shook his head and got on the carriage. Xiaoyu was responsible for leading the way, and behind him was a 100-man guard army responsible for Qin Yu's safety. The convoy drove from the inner city into the west city, and finally slowly arrived at the gate of the west city. Qin Yu jumped off the car, then climbed up the city wall, and looked at the dense crowd 100 meters away from the city gate. He estimated that there were about 700 or 800 people. At this time, two people came out of the crowd and slowly approached the city gate. One was old with grey hair and beard, and the other was young, with a straight back and black hair. The Futeng tribe wants to see the leader of your tribe to discuss important matters. A vigorous and powerful voice came from the mouth of the hunched old man. Come in and say what you want to say. Qin Yu responded loudly while standing on the city wall. As Qin Yu's voice fell, the huge city gate slowly opened, and the old man and the young man walked in together. Qin Yu walked down the city ladder and looked at the two people coming towards him and said softly, Chief of the Dragon Tribe, you. The chief of the Futeng tribe is Yun Wu. The witch of the Futeng tribe is Yun Yin. The old man and the young man responded one by one. Qin Yu nodded slightly and then asked, what do you two want to discuss? The hunchbacked old man said slowly, the Bone Erosion tribe came from the western swamp and wanted to turn all the creatures on the grassland into nutrients. The previous generation of witches of the Futeng tribe brought 300 warriors of the tribe and used their lives to delay the speed of their erosion. I see that your tribe has a large population and must be extraordinary, so I want to bury the Bone Erosion tribe with you in the eastern part of the grassland. Listening to the old man's explanation, Qin Yu couldn't help but wonder, how can you be sure that my dragon tribe can definitely stop the Bone Erosion tribe? Aren't you afraid that you will guess wrong and destroy the entire tribe? It's the guidance of the totem. The young man slowly opened his mouth and said in a deep voice, the totem conveyed a message to me that there is an existence in the east that is more than 10 times more powerful than the Futeng totem. As the man spoke, his eyes looked straight in the direction of the inner city. That powerful force came from the inner city. Qin Yu's expression remained unchanged, but he was more and more confused in his heart. The dragon tribe has a hammer totem? It's 10 times more powerful. Qin Yu suddenly doubted whether these two people were plotting something, but he couldn't pretend not to know. He also wanted to know what exactly attracted these two people. "Shall I take you there to see?" Qin Yu asked. The two were stunned, then nodded. "Get in the car." Qin Yu made a gesture of invitation. The two climbed onto the carriage in a daze, and Qin Yu sat on the side, and then the carriage began to move slowly towards the direction of the inner city. "Your tribe has actually tamed the wild beast." Yunwu looked at the 4 horses in front slowly pulling the carriage, and couldn't help but look surprised. It is said that in ancient times, when civilization had not yet disappeared, our ancestors were able to tame wild beasts or fight or drive them. This is something that ordinary humans can do, although it is not as amazing as a powerful witch who can summon all kinds of beasts. Yunwu leaned against the carriage and sighed with yearning. Qin Yu was stunned and asked, "You actually know about ancient times? Didn't civilization disappear? Why would anyone remember it?" Yunwu's eyes, which were originally closed, suddenly opened, and she looked at Qin Yu strangely. In ancient times, humans and gods coexisted. Some people could shoot down the sun with one arrow, some could drink the river, some could knock down the pillars of heaven, and some could burn the river and boil the sea. Later, due to people's selfish desires for good and evil, and the abuse of the power of heaven and earth, gods appeared. The gods took back the authority of heaven and earth, and thus looked for witches in the world, to exercise power on their behalf. So far, the witch has become the will of God walking in the world, and the witch's will is like the will of God. The witch can take charge of the power of heaven and earth on behalf of God. Therefore, from then on, the witch in the tribe has become the highest status. Later, because God needed the sacrifices of the people to consolidate his own power, the world started a struggle for divine power. The major clans started wars with each other. For a time, all lives were destroyed, and the world collapsed. And the reason why civilization was destroyed is that God developed selfish desires because of power, which was not allowed by heaven and earth. Therefore, heaven and earth destroyed the gods and the laws controlled by the gods. And in that era, although civilization was destroyed, there were still many great witches who protected some clans and people and saved them. This story was passed down from generation to generation by the witches of the Futeng tribe. There are also many stories about ancient times. It stands to reason that the witches of your tribe should also know about it. Qin Yu was a little stunned when he listened to it. Although he was prepared for the possibility that there would be extraordinary people in the world he drew, he did not expect that the level of this world would be so high. In order to avoid exposing the fact that he actually knew nothing, Qin Yu simply stopped talking. The carriage drove all the way into the inner city, and Yan Yin in the car felt the restlessness of the totem in her arms more and more. That's right, that powerful force came from the totem of the dragon tribe. This also shows the strength of the dragon tribe, because the stronger the totem, the stronger the witch in the tribe, and the more totem warriors there are. The carriage finally stopped in the center of the inner city. When Yunwu and Yan Yin got off the car and looked forward, they all showed a look of shock. Following their gaze, they saw a 3-meter high giant tripod standing on a high platform built of huge stones in front of them. The giant tripod was 3 meters high, mainly inky black, and there were golden patterns such as mountains and rivers, dragons, and phoenixes engraved on it. In Yan Yin's eyes, the giant tripod was surrounded by a rich golden light, and the mountains and rivers above it seemed to reveal a majestic momentum, deep and heavy. There were also majestic golden dragons and golden phoenixes around the mountains and rivers, protecting the giant tripod. This is the sacred weapon of the country, Yan Yin exclaimed with wide eyes. At the same time, on the high platform, the giant tripod was shining with golden light. Suddenly, a stream of green light emerged from Yan Yin's arms and soared into the sky, flying into the giant tripod. Swallowed. The totem was swallowed. Yunwu and Yan Yin shouted in shock. Chapter 120 The Extraordinary System of Qin Yu's World. Must read. Qin Yu looked at the green light that flew into the king's cauldron and immediately became alert. While ordering the guards to surround the two people, he began to use his consciousness to provoke the king's cauldron. He was afraid that this artifact that could stabilize the hearts of the tribesmen would be destroyed. That would be a big loss. As Qin Yu took the initiative to provoke the king's cauldron, his consciousness suddenly sank. Then the surrounding scene changed, and he seemed to have come to a dark space. As Qin Yu regained consciousness and slowly opened his eyes, two rays of light suddenly lit up in the dark scene around him. One was a green light and its size was like a stone, and the other was a golden light, more than 3 feet high, that is, 9 meters high, like a natural chasm, that was just a hurdle in front of Qin Yu. At this time, Qin Yu looked at the two lights that were as different as a river and an ocean, and suddenly a thought that he could control appeared in his mind. He fixed his eyes on the green light, and with a move of consciousness, several strands of green light separated from it, and went into Qin Yu's hands. Then he saw the surrounding space suddenly shake, and thick green vines surged wildly from around his feet, and soared into the sky. Qin Yu looked shocked. The next second, everything disappeared, as if the previous changes were all illusions. Qin Yu stared at the green light, and he seemed to understand a word. Vine. Is this a fragment of the law containing the power of vines? According to Qin Yu's insights from reading many books for many years, this explanation should be the most appropriate. He retracted his gaze and looked at the golden light again. Through the layers of golden light, he saw many things, all-encompassing things, but these things seemed to be all-encompassing and nothing. In the end, Qin Yu only understood 2 words. Heaven and earth. Demonstrate heaven and earth. Possess the ability to demonstrate heaven and earth and everything. Qin Yu's consciousness moved, and several strands of golden light were separated and passed into his hands. The surrounding ground shook again, even more violently than before. Thick golden vines soared into the sky from under his feet. Compared with the vines exerted by the power of vines, the vines are thicker, bigger, harder, stronger. Qin Yu's consciousness moved, and the golden vines instantly retracted to the ground. The strange image disappeared, and the whole person withdrew from this space. It's okay, disperse. Qin Yu waved his hand, and the guards surrounding the two immediately retreated. Yunyan and Yunwu watched the tense atmosphere dissipate, and they couldn't help but wipe the sweat from their foreheads, and breathed a sigh of relief. After a moment of silence, Yunyan asked carefully, I can feel that the Futeng totem is in this giant tripod. Do you have a way to take it out? Qin Yu thought to himself after hearing this. He can indeed control the king's tripod to kick out the Futeng totem. But after kicking it, the king's tripod no longer has the effect of demonstrating the power of vines. Will Qin Yu return it? What a joke, it ran in by itself. What can he do? If you have the ability, you can let him run out. Qin Yu said helplessly, this Futeng totem got in by itself. I can't do anything about it. How about you try to communicate with it? Yunyan and Yunwu looked at each other in a daze, not knowing what to do. After a long time, Yunwu sighed and looked at Qin Yu and said slowly, without the Futeng totem, the tribe can't survive. Since your tribe has the sacred artifact of the ancient civilization, it must have a deep bloodline. Please accept our Futeng tribe as your subordinate tribe and worship the totem together. Qin Yu listened to Yunwu's words, his eyes flashed, and he was obviously thinking. It is obviously not a long-term way for the dragon tribe to develop by annexing all the time. This is unacceptable to the tribe with totem beliefs. It is better to adopt a one-country multi-tribe system. Anyway, when the time comes, all the totems of other tribes will be thrown into the king's cauldron, and everyone will worship one totem. In addition, with the special effects of the king's cauldron, there is no fear of anyone rebelling. What he didn't expect was that the king's cauldron actually had such a powerful force. The so-called golden energy was probably the result of the long-term sacrifices of the people in the dragon tribe. Qin Yu was silent for a moment and then responded, okay, the people of the Futeng tribe will settle in the South City. I will send people to popularize the laws of the dragon tribe later. The witches of the Futeng tribe need to join the witch hall. Let's discuss the details inside the house. The elders of the Sea tribe will be responsible for the resettlement of the people of the Futeng tribe. After Qin Yu finished speaking, several people walked into the meeting hall together, and C2 took people to be responsible for resettling the more than 700 people outside the city into the South City. In the meeting hall, Qin Yu asked the two to sit down, and then asked someone to pour them a cup of warm milk. You're welcome. Yunwu smiled and replied. We're all family from now on, so there's no need to be like this. Qin Yu smiled and continued. How much do you know about the sacred artifact that guards the country? Yunwu didn't say anything but looked at Yunyin. After a moment of silence, Yunyin said, I also heard it from the old witch. It is said that the clans of ancient civilizations fought and annexed each other. Some gods forged totem sacred artifacts in order to annex the totem authority of other clans. The clan that possesses the sacred artifact can annex the totem authority of other clans. Therefore, it can annex countless clans and establish a powerful totem country. Qin Yu nodded and asked, what about the relationship between witches and totems? How did totem warriors come into being? To be honest with you, my tribe has lost its inheritance in this regard. Yunyin was stunned. He was obviously confused by this remark. After a moment of silence, he still replied, the totem fire is a fragment of authority passed down by ancient civilization. Only through continuous sacrifices can the authority be made more complete. Only those who have been recognized by the totem fire can be the witch. The witch can get close to the totem and comprehend the power of the powerful authority in it. Some powers require a strong soul to give it a spirit seed, and some powers require a strong body to give it a spirit seed. And when giving spirit seeds, it is necessary to consume the power of the totem fire. People with low talents find it difficult to bear the power of spirit seeds, and the stronger the talent, the stronger the power of the spirit seeds they develop. For example, in ancient civilizations, there was Day who could penetrate the sun, Ziran who could burn rivers and boil seas, Gangan who could flood the world, Fuxi who could summon countless wild beasts with one finger of music, Jumang who could make all trees spring, Xingshan who could chop the sky with one axe, and Yuqiang who could drive the plague and destroy all living things with a wave of his hand. These are all powers that can only be mastered by deeply understanding the authority of heaven and earth. The more Qin Yu listened, the more strange it was. Isn't this the Chinese myth? There are many similarities with the classic of mountains and seas. The classic of mountains and seas records a magnificent and extremely grand world. Fortunately, this is a new world after the extinction of civilization. Otherwise, if you come directly to the world of mountains and seas, it is really difficult to die at the beginning, and the chance of survival is zero. After a long time, after Qin Yu consumed all this information, he asked again, what kind of scene will it be when the power of the Futeng totem is understood to the deepest level? After hearing this, Yunyin couldn't help but recall the story told by the old witch. The extreme of the vine can cover the sky and the sun. The Futeng witch ancestor can summon thousands of miles of vines at will. One person can turn the world upside down and destroy thousands of miles of beasts. P.S. I was suddenly infected with influenza A, and I had a fever and headache. I felt sore and weak all over, and my mind was blank. I can only update twice today. I will try to resume normal updates tomorrow. Note, this number of words does not cost coins. The worldview is only adapted on the basis of Shanhaijing. Please do not focus on Shanhaijing. Even if it is Shanhaijing, this is a world of Shanhaijing after its destruction. Do not focus on real myths, but on the adapted worldview. Chapter 121 Super 5-star character. In the meeting hall, Qin Yu was discussing with Yunyin and Yunwu how to deal with the bone erosion tribe. Yunyin sat at the low table, raised his hand to pick up the ceramic cup on the table, and poured a mouthful of warm milk into his mouth to moisten his throat. Then he said, the totem of the bone erosion tribe has the ability to turn people into monsters. Perhaps it is not a totem, but more like a sacrifice to the evil god. Once you eat the human meat rice they make, you will lose your mind and consciousness, and become a complete monster. The blood in the body will gradually disappear, and the whole person will lose consciousness. The whole body is as pale as a corpse, running very fast, not afraid of pain, and no fear. It is difficult to eliminate them, if only ordinary warriors are relied on. And we migrated all the way here, and many tribes were eroded by them along the way. I guess there must be a lot of white-faced people at this time. Qin Yu listened to Yunyin's introduction, and fell into deep thought. Why does this kind of white-faced man sound so much like a walking corpse, a zombie, or even an undead creature? After a long time, he asked, are these things afraid of fire? Or can the flame burn them? Yunyin thought for a while, and frowned and said, "My lord, it is difficult to make the fire bigger in winter, right? But if the power of the totem has the authority of fire, then it may be possible to destroy them." Qin Yu nodded. "I already have an idea about this matter, but can you guess the number of those monsters?" "At least 3,000. Yunwu suddenly responded. "What about the most?" "No more than 5,000, but the targets they choose are all young and strong, and the weak ones will be made into human meat rice." Qin Yu was stunned, then frowned and said angrily, "Such evil deeds should be condemned by both humans and gods." Yunyan and Yunwu nodded in agreement. Qin Yu sighed, and then he checked the attributes of the two people. Name, Yunwu. Gender, male. Age, 55. Force, extraordinary first order. Physique, agility, intelligence, command. When the personal attribute value exceeds 5 stars, it will be changed to extraordinary level. The extraordinary level is only evaluated based on personal strength and life level. There are 9 different life levels from level 1 to level 9. Combat talent, one-handed weapon, talent, versatile, B-level upper, effect. The people's hearts in the settlements and cities under governance will increase by 30%. The talent is quick and can handle civil affairs better. Extraordinary ability, catalytic vine armor satiation. 70. Loyalty. 68. Name, Yunyan. Gender, male. Age, 20. Force, extraordinary first order. Intelligence, spirit, extraordinary first order. Physique, agility, command, battle talent, long range weapon, talent, God's blessing, middle grade B. Effect, blessed by God, turn danger into fortune. Supernatural ability, vine entanglement, vine growing out of the ground satiation. 65. Loyalty. 70. Qin Yu looked at the changes on the panel and couldn't help but fall into deep thought. The attributes are not all replaced by stars, but the attributes that exceed 5 stars are transformed into the supernatural level. According to the above explanation, 5 stars is a standard for evaluating ordinary people, and those who exceed the scope of ordinary people will be classified as supernatural. As for the specific strength, Qin Yu is still unsure. Of the two, Yunwu should use the spirit seed of the totem body, and Yunyan uses the spirit seed of the totem soul. One of them increases the body and the other increases the soul or mental power, which may not be right. It should be regarded as the kind of divine power of authority. Qin Yu doesn't know much about this at present. The witch's ability comes from the totem, but is the increased power from the inside, or given by the totem, or absorbed from some energy body between heaven and earth? Shaking his head, Qin Yu put this idea aside for the time being, then looked at the two and said, "After you return to Nancheng, you will be responsible for assisting C2 in settling the people of your tribe. If you have any questions, come to the meeting hall to find me. After the tribe is settled, I plan to arrange for you to join the army as a general. What do you think?" Yunwu folded his hands and said, "It's all up to you." Yunwu only hopes that the bloodline of the tribe can continue safely. Qin Yu nodded and looked at Yunyan again. Yunyan will directly go to the witch hall to serve as a wizard, responsible for studying totems, developing witchcraft, and totem sacrifices. Yunyan will stay for a while to accompany me to study totems, and Yunwu, you should go back to settle the tribe as soon as possible. Yes. Yunwu folded his hands and then stood up and left the hall. Qin Yu took Yunyan out together and came to the high platform where the king's tripod was placed. "Try to see if you can communicate with the Futeng totem normally," Qin Yu said. Yunyan nodded and then slightly closed her eyes to awaken the spirit seed in her body. The light green light rushed to the king's cauldron. After a long time, Yunyan's face showed a strange color, and she said in confusion, "I can sense the totem, but I can't communicate. It seems that something is blocking me." Qin Yu was also stunned. When Yunyan communicated with the totem, he received a wave of prompts in his heart. He silently released the restrictions and then said, "Try again." Yunyan nodded and tried again. His face was shocked. He could communicate again. Qin Yu looked at the other party's expression and guessed it in his heart. Whoever wants to communicate with the totem in the king's cauldron needs his consent. "How did you develop witchcraft?" "By observing the totem," Qin Yu asked curiously at this time. Regarding the role of the totem in the development of the extraordinary system, he is currently like a blind man, with a dark patch in front of his eyes. Yun Yin thought about it and explained to Qin Yu for a long time. Qin Yu thought for a moment and understood what Yun Yin meant. When communicating with the totem, the witch can comprehend it, and in the process of comprehending, he can use his mental power to simulate the method of using the power of authority. That is, the method and route of using footing. For example, the whole process from growing vines to attacking the enemy and then binding the enemy tightly is the operation route of the totem witchcraft. This image route is engraved into the spirit seed bit by bit, so that it can be used in an instant when fighting with the enemy. Of course, releasing witchcraft is a matter of considerable mental power consumption, and while consuming it, it also sharpens the upper limit of mental power. As long as the mental power is sufficient, witchcraft with the same operation route can be superimposed and released. For example, take the vine entanglement just now as an example. The witchcraft itself only releases vines to one person to tie him up. If the witchcraft is superimposed, theoretically, as long as the mental power is sufficient, countless vines can be released to countless enemies instantly to tie them up. Thanks to my good brother and book friend I'm the king under the galaxy, the boss of the middle school, for the 1000 coin reward. Thanks to the book friend for the 600 coin reward. Thanks to the book friends 1995 for the 100 coin reward. The rules for adding more chapters are on the last page of the release remarks. Chapter 122, The Terrifying Qin Yu. Extraordinary Power. How did the spirit seed condense? After the two discussed the structure of totem witchcraft for a long time, Qin Yu began to ask about the spirit seed. Just use consciousness to communicate with the totem. Yun Yin answered. Qin Yu nodded and then asked, how do you distinguish and condense the body and soul? Can a person contain both spirit seeds at the same time? Yun Yin shook her head. Only witches who can communicate with totems can integrate soul spirit seeds, and the spirit seeds that witches control and integrate into the warrior's bodies are body spirit seeds, and each person can only have one spirit seed. Qin Yu nodded and understood immediately. One is that the one who actively asks for it is the soul spirit seed, and the one who is passively given is the body spirit seed. In other words, only witches who can communicate with totems can integrate spirit seeds into the soul sea of consciousness, while totem warriors can only integrate them into the body. The king's cauldron may not be a totem, but the power in it is similar to the power of a totem, but also different. As long as the totem is absorbed into the king's cauldron, the golden energy body can copy its ability and even make it stronger. This is called demonstrating the power of heaven and earth. Heaven and earth means to embrace everything in heaven and earth. The ability of the king's cauldron is far more than that. Imagine if the cauldron absorbs more than a dozen totems, then when simulating the development of witchcraft, can it be mixed and matched? For example, the combination of flame and vine. The original vine entanglement only has a binding effect. If the flame is added, it will be a force damage effect. Maybe you can create a flame tortoise shell binding. Or the combination of arrows and vines plus poison, turning the vines into arrows, and the arrows are wrapped with poison. With a wave of the hand, tens of thousands of poisonous arrows can be summoned to cover the enemy's square formation. The power of a single totem may not be strong, but with the ability of the king's cauldron itself, it is possible to integrate and evolve several or even dozens of totems, so as to develop more powerful and complex totem witchcraft. However, there is only one kind of Fu-Teng totem at present, and the golden energy can only demonstrate this ability. Secondly, whether you can comprehend the totem does not require the approval of the totem at present. As long as Qin Yu agrees, those who want to comprehend the totem can immerse their consciousness in the totem. In other words, Qin Yu can completely select talented people, take the initiative to communicate with the totem, to obtain the soul spirit seed, and then develop witchcraft. In this way, he can build a team of extraordinary people. Of course, the so-called totem warriors, like Yun Wu, can also reach the extraordinary level. In addition to using the totem spirit seed as a medium to enhance physical strength, the physical spirit seed can also possess the essential power of the totem. That is, the power that can be activated without using mental power, just like a passive skill. However, according to Yun Yin, if the totem warrior wants to activate the power of the totem, such as attaching a layer of vine armor, it also needs to consume the blood in the body. After understanding this, Qin Yu silently took the initiative to communicate with the king's cauldron. As his consciousness immersed, a soul seed shining with golden light as big as a fist condensed from the golden energy and then quickly flew into Qin Yu's mind. The whole process was extremely easy, without the slightest resistance. After the spirit seed was integrated into Qin Yu's mind, Qin Yu carefully felt the changes in himself. First of all, the once vague memory became clearer, and not only that, he felt that the thinking in his mind became clearer and more active. Not only that, but his seemingly magical comprehension has also improved. The biggest change is that he has deepened his connection with the King's Cauldron. Qin Yu's consciousness moved, and a thin golden vine instantly appeared from his palm and rose up. The thin vine can change according to Qin Yu's thoughts, and the gold can also return to its normal green color. Yan Yin, who was standing by, stared at Qin Yu with a face full of shock, as if she had seen a ghost. Oh my god. Was he integrating the spirit seed just now? Aren't spirit seeds only the size of an eyeball? What was that just now? A spirit seed as big as a fist. How could it be a spirit seed? What surprised him was not the spirit seed that was far beyond the normal size, but the time it took Qin Yu to integrate the spirit seed and use the totem power. For those with excellent talent, the former only takes an hour or so, and for those with poor talent, a few days is normal. After integrating the spirit seed, the latter needs to first engrave the witchcraft demonstrated in the totem into the spirit seed for a long time before using it. Even simple witchcraft takes at least half a month. It is normal for complex and powerful witchcraft to take decades. Qin Yu felt a little dizzy as he continued to use the power of the totem. Then he stopped consuming his mental power and chose to use the golden energy in the King's Cauldron to use the power of the totem instead of mental power. As the golden light attached to Qin Yu's body, the surrounding earth trembled violently, and thick golden vines broke out of the ground and rushed into the sky. In the blink of an eye, the golden vines covered a radius of 100 meters, with hundreds of them. They were so thick that they stood on the ground like elephant legs, and Qin Yu was so scared that he quickly retracted them. Fortunately, he did not send out an attack consciousness, so no casualties were caused. Instead, Yan Yin next to him was almost dislocated. Qin Yu patted his chest and breathed a sigh of relief. He was really afraid that an accident would cause a large number of casualties in the tribe. However, this ability to release the power of the totem without restrictions, and only through thoughts in the mind, can only be used by Qin Yu, the master who completely controls the King's Cauldron. But this is not a good thing. If the witchcraft is engraved in advance, there will be no uncontrollable situation. Of course, part of it is because Qin Yu is unfamiliar with it and cannot use the golden energy stably and skillfully. The witchcraft just now only consumed the golden energy of the size of a thumb. Sir, your tribe's totem is really amazing, Yan Yin said in surprise with his eyes wide open. He had already integrated the spirit seed when he became the old witch's disciple, and it has been 3 years now. However, for a witchcraft of that scale just now, he can only perform it once, before he will run out of energy and give up. And the chief of the dragon tribe in front of him can easily perform such a large-scale witchcraft, just after integrating the spirit seed. Moreover, why is this witchcraft exactly the same as the power of the Futeng totem? You can't just change the color and say it is the totem of your tribe, right? Yan Yin was puzzled, but it was not convenient to ask. After thinking for a while, he chose to remain silent. I'll take you to the witch hall first. Qin Yu ignored Yan Yin's surprise and took him to the direction of the witch hall. Qin Yu planned to be careful about the training of the extraordinary. As the saying goes, holding a sharp weapon, the murderous intention is everywhere. Although it is not very appropriate to use it here, the so-called extraordinary power is something that is easy to exceed one's control, right? If there are no restrictions, or it cannot be fully controlled, then the extraordinary will bring a destructive end. On the contrary, if it can be properly controlled, the use of extraordinary power can make the strength of civilization grow rapidly. This is a double-edged sword that is not easy to control. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 123 The Shocked People in the Witch Hall. Fortunately, everything is based on the king's cauldron. As long as Qin Yu disagrees, no one can get extraordinary power from it. Qin Yu can even directly block the power of the world's authority inside, so that the extraordinary people with spiritual seeds cannot use the power of the totem to launch witchcraft. However, their own mental power or strong physique cannot be blocked. This is the power that is promoted to themselves. And for totem witchcraft, that needs to borrow the power of the world's authority and the totem to launch. Qin Yu can block it and make it lose the ability to launch. However, the witchcraft in this world is not only totem witchcraft. In addition, there are general witchcraft that does not require the blessing of authority. For example, the tortoise treasure hexagram technique, the blood contract technique, the blood burning technique, etc. This kind of blood burning technique is best used for totem warriors with huge blood and ki, and it has not had much impact, but if it is used by ordinary people, it may make them instantly have half the power of a totem warrior. If the blood and ki are strong, it may be instantly upgraded to the level of a totem warrior. Totem warriors with physical spirit seeds can not only possess the characteristics and passive abilities of the power of authority, but also improve their own blood and ki more easily. The effect of using various medicinal baths will be better, and it is easier to improve the blood and ki in the body by exercising and tempering oneself. It is equivalent to the spirit seed opening a path to transcendence for them. Strange things like physical spirit seeds seem to be like divine objects for martial arts civilization. It can make a warrior with ordinary talents become extraordinary when practicing martial arts, and the improvement speed feels like flying. And soul spirit seeds may be able to make rapid progress when combined with cultivation. Both sides have a complementary role. After thinking for a long time, Qin Yu was looking forward to what kind of special technology tree he could get in the future. Whether it is martial arts, cultivation, or even Shinto, the power of authority possessed by this totem can make its power soar and progress rapidly. He now understands why Wenzhao envied players who have extraordinary system worlds. This kind of world is really unimaginable when combined with its special technology tree. Take Wenzhao and Qin Yu as an example. If he also obtained the martial arts technology tree, he would be confident that the martial arts civilization he developed would develop several times faster than Wenzhao, and the power would be more than 10 times. This is the horror of the world with a supernatural system. The two walked for about 10 minutes and came to the door of the witch hall. The entire area of the witch hall reached nearly 1,000 square meters. It was built with a combination of wood and stone. Walking into it was as broad and magnificent as an ancient palace. There were more than 50 people in the hall studying witchcraft together. The intelligence attributes of these more than 50 people all had the potential of more than 3 stars, so Qin Yu felt that they should be able to meet the conditions for fusing spirit seeds. But how could supernatural power be given at all without conditions? It is better to hang it in front of them and turn it into a driving force for them to move forward. Jiangrong. Qin Yu walked into the hall and shouted loudly. Jiangrong, who was teaching many witch disciples, also known as witch children, in the witch hall, was stunned and then stood up and walked towards Qin Yu. Patriarch. He greeted respectfully. This is Yan, who has made great achievements in totem witchcraft. You are more talented in general witchcraft. From now on, Yan will assist you in developing the witch hall. Report the names of those who have been in the witch hall for more than 1 month and have mastered more than one kind of witchcraft to me. I will personally preside over the awakening ceremony and give the outstanding talents in the witch hall more powerful power. As Qin Yu spoke, his consciousness moved and golden light shone around him. The entire witch hall was instantly entangled by vines. Countless dense golden vines wandered around the people in the hall, and their shapes were like countless twisted snakes, giving people goosebumps all over the floor. Looking at the fearful and shocked expressions of the people in the hall, Qin Yu waved his hand with satisfaction, and the vines around him disappeared instantly. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief, and at the same time, their eyes looking at Qin Yu were full of desire. Of course, it was definitely not the desire for a man. It was the desire for the power just now. The desire for strength. What are the conditions for having such a powerful power? Having been in the witch hall for more than 1 month, and learned more than one kind of witchcraft. In the hall, 5 people's eyes were instantly filled with stronger desire. They met the requirements. The others studied witchcraft even harder, wishing to swallow the witchcraft knowledge into their brains. Yan Yin, you can practice general witchcraft with them when you have time. Qin Yu patted Yan Yin's shoulder and said. Yan Yin nodded and immediately thanked. Since the adults are not shy about me, Yan Yin will definitely do his best. Qin Yu smiled and said, since we have entered a family, we will be a family in the future. No need to be polite. I value you very much. In addition to the affairs of the witch hall, you should start to select tribesmen who can withstand the physical spirit seeds in the tribe, and bring them to the meeting hall at a time. I will awaken them to become totem warriors. Yan Yin understands. Qin Yu nodded, and then left the witch hall. Totem warriors cannot be promoted to extraordinary as soon as they awaken. They still need a certain amount of time to settle down. They just have one more path to extraordinary than ordinary people, and a faster improvement speed. Qin Yu didn't know what the qualification requirements for integrating into the spirit seed were. Maybe it was potential, or maybe it was the current attribute. He didn't know if he could take advantage of the militia training camp. On the way back, Qin Yu ran into a guard who was looking for him. The guard said hurriedly, Chief, Xiaoyu Dutao is waiting for you in the meeting hall. He said there is important information. Important information? Then hurry up. Qin Yu immediately quickened his pace and took the guard all the way to the meeting hall. Chief. Xiaoyu greeted Qin Yu respectfully when he saw him walk in. Qin Yu waved his hand. Don't do this. Tell me the intelligence quickly. Xiaoyu nodded and said, the scout team found people who are suspected to be from the Bone Erosion tribe 60 miles west of Dragon City. They are eating the tribesmen there. There are many people with pale faces. It's almost certain that they are from the Bone Erosion tribe. Tell the scouts to step up surveillance. Once they get close to the position of 10 miles from Dragon City, immediately notify all troops to prepare for battle. Qin Yu shouted with a stern face. Yes. Xiaoyu responded loudly and then turned and left the meeting hall. In the next 3 days, the dragon tribe began to enter a state of strict alert. While resisting the enemies from the west, they were carrying out the plan to develop extraordinary power. When Jiang Rong and Yan Yin each put the list in front of Qin Yu, he couldn't help but sigh. Sure enough, there were only 5 people who were qualified to become wizards, and there were only 6 people including Jiang Rong himself. And the number of people who were qualified to awaken to become totem warriors was not high, only less than 50 people. Chapter 124, Establishing the Extraordinary, Dragon and Tiger Guards. In a city, on the huge platform, Qin Yu stood in front of the king's cauldron, and looked calmly at the people queuing below. I will release the authority one by one later. The 6 people who awakened the wizards this time will communicate with the king's cauldron and merge the spirit seeds according to the requirements of the witch Yun. Understood. Everyone shouted in unison. Qin Yu nodded and gradually released the authority to communicate with the king's cauldron. Light golden light spots kept intersecting with the king's cauldron around the few people. After about 2 hours, a spirit seed half the size of a fist gradually flew out of the king's cauldron and merged into the position of Jiang Rong's forehead. Yan Yin, who was standing by, watched with her eyelids twitching. After a long time, more than 3 hours later, 3 more people successfully merged with the spirit seed, but the size was only the size of an eyeball. This also indirectly shows that their talents are not as good as Jiang Rong. The wizard's awakening ceremony lasted until noon, and the remaining 2 people finally merged with the spirit seed, successfully opening a path to transcendence. The spirit seeds they merged were similar to the previous 3 people, but slightly smaller. After the wizards awakened, it was the turn of the totem warriors to awaken. This was much simpler than before. 45 totem warriors sat in place, and Qin Yu silently activated the king's cauldron. In an instant, 45 spiritual seeds filled with golden light flew out of the king's cauldron and then rushed towards the crowd. One by one, the spiritual seeds, slightly larger than eyeballs, drilled into the bodies of everyone. Everyone felt that at that moment, the blood in their bodies seemed to be burning. Their skin began to turn red, and sweat continued to seep out of their bodies. Everyone gritted their teeth and persisted. After about an hour, everyone successfully integrated the spiritual seeds and became a formal totem warrior. However, they have just embarked on the road to transcendence. At present, apart from having one more special ability than ordinary people, There are no other major changes. Attributes such as physique and agility have only been slightly improved. If you really want to enter the extraordinary, you still need to fight and hone constantly. Try your abilities. Qin Yu had already walked down from the high platform at this time, looking at everyone and whispering. A group of totem warriors felt the changes in their bodies, and then silently urged the spirit seeds in their bodies. As a burst of golden light covered the whole body, Qin Yu's eyes revealed curiosity, and saw that the surface of everyone's body was gradually covered by a layer of golden vine armor, looking like a group of golden tree vine people. Clang! Qin Yu pulled out the fine iron hand sword from his waist. Come on, who wants me to chop? Let me see how good the defense is. Everyone looked at each other, and finally a tall and strong man walked out of the crowd with a look of despair on his face and said, Chief, you have to take it easy. Qin Yu nodded and comforted. Don't worry, I know the depth. Squeak if it hurts. As soon as the voice fell, Qin Yu began to raise the hand sword in his hand to test. First carefully scratched the arm that had been transformed by the vine with a blade for a while, and seeing that there was no damage, Qin Yu began to chop again. Except for a slight pain reaction, there was no other change. Qin Yu tried to stab again, and this time there was some reaction. The tip of the sword was stabbed in forcefully, and the strong man showed a painful look, and blood dripped from inside. But the injury was not serious. Qin Yu had used a lot of strength just now, and the fine iron sword was extremely sharp, so he could pierce the rattan armor. In addition to the sword attack, Qin Yu asked someone to bring a torch to see if the rattan armor was afraid of fire. The people on the side held up a wooden bucket filled with water and waited. Once the flames covered the whole body, they would quickly pour it over. As the flames attached to the strong man's body, the imagined scene did not appear. After persisting for 3 or 4 minutes, the man cried out that it was hot and painful. But the flames never ignited the catalytic rattan armor. Yun on the side said in confusion, if it is the rattan armor catalyzed by the totem of the Fu Teng tribe, it is not easy to ignite, but it is just not easy. It will eventually ignite. In other words, the rattan armor is afraid of fire, but Qin Yu nodded after hearing this. He knew that this was because the vine armor evolved from the power of heaven and earth did not have that shortcoming. After the test, Qin Yu put away the hand sword in his hand, then looked at the strong man and said, you are quite courageous. What's your name? The strong man bowed slightly and said, Chief, my name is Yao Zan. Name, Yao Zan. Gender, male. Age 26. Force, physique, agility, intelligence, command, combat talent, two-handed weapon, talent, Xiangang righteousness, class A lower, effect, born with the talent of Ganki. And gradually increase the Ganki in the body as the Qi and blood grow. Satiation. 65 loyalty. 82 his. Qin Yu looked at Yao Zan's attributes and couldn't help but suck in a mouthful of cold noodles. He was not shocked by Yao Zan's attributes, but by Yun's ability to recognize people. The fact that all 45 people were able to successfully fuse their spirit seeds means that their innate attributes are pretty good. Qin Yu was able to tell the quality of talents by checking the attributes, but Yun did not have this ability. This must be due to the inheritance of the old witch of the Fu Teng tribe. Qin Yu looked at Yao Zan again. To be honest, both the attributes and talents were very strong, especially the talents that could reach class A, which were all very powerful. Some had the talent to command the army, but Yao Zan's was obviously a talent related to personal combat power. Ganki. I just don't know how powerful it is. Qin Yu wanted Yao Zan to show it, but it seemed that there was no reaction. Finally, he guessed that it might be because of insufficient blood and Qi that he could not produce Ganki. He shook his head. Qin Yu patted Yao Zan on the shoulder and said, in the future, you will be included in the sequence of Dragon and Tiger Guard, and listed as D among A, B, C, and D. Yao Zan will be the leader and a Dragon and Tiger Guard training ground will be established in the North City. I will send people to deliver the subsequent equipment and weapons. There is no need to unify them. Just do what you are best at and most convenient. The treatment, system, rewards, etc. will be announced later. At present, your task is to strengthen training and strengthen your physique. Yes. Everyone responded loudly. Among them, Yao Zan's voice was the loudest. The eyes of others looking at him were full of envy, and they regretted not standing up and letting the patriarch cut them twice. Qin Yu looked at the reactions of the crowd and his thoughts turned. The development of extraordinary people must be the survival of the fittest. This involves the allocation of resources in the future, and naturally, priority should be given to those with high talents, or who can produce greater value. Therefore, Qin Yu planned to establish some special extraordinary teams, based on extraordinary units. Chapter 125 Bone erosion is coming. Players are invading. Before the supernatural power was popularized by the whole people, this kind of team was the special forces in the army, the elite forces, and even the secret weapon that could turn the tide of the war. They were divided into 4 levels, A, B, C, and D. The excellent teams moved up and enjoyed the best resources, while the inferior teams moved down and enjoyed the second-rate resources. It was not only the survival of the fittest between teams, but also the members within the team. The excellent ones stayed, and the inferior ones moved to the next rate team. In recent days, the progress of the farming task in 4 Seasons Fairy Valley has been more than half completed, and more than 30 kinds of medicinal materials have been planted in advance, and they can be harvested and used in less than a year. Of course, the longer the time for some medicinal materials, the higher the medicinal content and efficacy. Qin Yu then gave a few more instructions and left. 2 days later, in the dark blue sky, a ray of morning sun broke through the horizon and illuminated the earth. The original snow shell on the grassland has become thinner than before, which is a sign that winter is about to leave. At this time, there was a cracking sound from the snow shell, and a thin man poked his head out of it. Hey, it's almost time to change shifts. How long will it take? A head suddenly broke out of the snow shell on the side, looked up at the direction of the sun and said, "It's almost there, it's almost there." Bang! A head suddenly broke out of the snow on the other side, and he quickly hushed and said, "I heard it, there's movement in the distance." Everyone was immediately shocked, and quickly quieted down and listened carefully. Dense footsteps came lightly from the ground, and one person quietly stood up and looked at the source of the sound. From the west of the grassland, about a kilometer away from everyone, a group of dense shadows appeared, and they were attacking here at a very fast speed. Were we discovered? Don't think about it, run. Quick, get out of here. A dozen people suddenly emerged from the snow, and they turned around and ran without any hesitation, at a very fast speed, and it seemed that they were not much slower than the enemies behind them. System prompt: your exemption card has expired. Civilization is no longer benefited by the exemption card. Please extend the exemption card in time. Qin Yu, who had just woken up, was stunned for a moment when he heard the prompt in his mind, and then he became energetic all of a sudden. He quickly washed up and went all the way to the meeting hall. At this time, the hall was full of people, and there were many more tables than before. After Qin Yu sat in the main seat, breakfast began to be served on each table one by one. The recent city defense must be strictly guarded. I have sent a message to Li to let him notify Panzan City and Xianghu City to strengthen defense work. In addition, Xiao's scout team will strengthen patrols in the mountains and forests recently. Once there is a situation, immediately let Xiao Bei fly back to send a message. Yes. Xiao stood up and arched his hands, and then sat down again. The so-called Xiao Bei is an adult falcon that Qin Yu had drawn before. It has a strong physique and snow-white hair all over its body. It is indeed very beautiful. However, considering that its role is more suitable for Xiao's work, Qin Yu gave it to him as a reward. After Xiao got the falcon, it became easier to get information on the grassland, and he could avoid danger in advance. After Qin Yu gave the order, everyone started to eat breakfast. The food was sufficient recently, so even in the morning, it was still very rich. Fried venison, venison porridge, fried venison chops, wheat steamed buns, flatbreads. However, since there were not many seasonings, Qin Yu always felt that the food was tasteless after getting used to the taste. On the other hand, the others always looked like they were enjoying it. The newly seated Yunwu and Yunayan even wiped out the food on the table in an exaggerated way. It may be because people with spiritual seeds have a large appetite, but Qin Yu estimated that it was more because their tribe had lived a food scarce life for too long. Now that there is no limit on the food, and the taste is very good, of course they eat quickly. After a while, when everyone had only eaten half of their meal, a guard came in and shouted, "Chief, the scout has come to report." Qin Yu was stunned and quickly shouted, "Hurry up and ask him to come up and tell us the situation." As Qin Yu finished speaking, a panting scout came in and said with a heavy breath, Chief, a large number of enemies appeared in the west, at least thousands of them. It must be the bone erosion tribe." At this time, Yun Wu suddenly stood up and said excitedly, "Don't panic. Notify all long-range troops, archers, catapults, and spear throwers to gather in the West City. All troops should be ready for battle, and immediately mobilize troops to each city gate to carry out defense work." Qin Yu stood up, and his loud voice resounded in everyone's ears, like a shot of tranquilizer to everyone. The generals of various routes immediately went out to mobilize their own troops, and the civil officials began to go down to calm the tribesmen and lead the militia to maintain order in the city. In order to quickly reach the West City to understand the situation, Qin Yu did not take a carriage this time, but rode his Fergana horse directly. 500 guards followed behind the horses, holding the rising dust. Qin Yu galloped on his horse and arrived at the West City gate in just a few minutes. At this time, thousands of archers had arrived at the city wall, and more than a dozen giant arrow towers were also full of people. The catapults reached the designated attack position, and the spear throwers also climbed up the city wall, waiting for Qin Yu's order to launch the attack. Qin Yu climbed up the wall and looked at the many figures emerging on the distant horizon. His palms were sweating. After all, the other party could not be considered a human. He was afraid that these monsters would not play by the rules and had some strange abilities, or were directly immune to his trump cards, which would be terrible. "Everyone get ready. When I say 3, the archers attack. When I say 2, the catapults attack. And when I say 1, the spear throwers attack." Yes. The noisy crowd responded in unison. The roars of thousands of people resounded at the same time, making Qin Yu's ears buzz, but his heart was also surging. At this time, even the trace of fear in his heart was also drowned by this tide of anger, and all that was left was the cold light of the enemy in the west. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Qin Yu looked at the enemy running fast towards Langcheng and estimated the distance in his mind. 200 meters, 150 meters. Just when Qin Yu was about to shout and shoot, he heard a prompt sound suddenly in his mind, which made him stunned for a moment. System prompt. Player number 80955 Luo Zhao has used the primary invasion order to invade your civilization. Please pay attention. PS. 2 updates today, and more will be made later. It's really uncomfortable to code with an empty head. I'm sorry for everyone. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.